Chapter 1232. Entering the Emperor's tomb. Sensing the gazes of the four island masters, Master Mu Feng nodded his head. Taking a step forward, he extended his right hand, and a myriad of mental energy shot out from between his eyebrows. The instant the mental energy shot out, it turned into a glowing seal and imprinted itself between the eyebrows of the 365 cultivators. The instant the glowing seal appeared between their eyebrows, the people who were originally struggling and cursing became like wooden puppets. They stood on the spot and no longer struggled. Slave seals from the myriad yin true scripture? When he saw the slave seals imprinted between the cultivator's eyebrows, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Weren't these slave seals evolved from the myriad yin true scripture? Zhuowen was extremely clear about these slave seals. However, Zhuowen did not say anything. Instead, he took a deep look at Master Mu Feng's back as a thoughtful expression appeared in his eyes. He did not expect that Master Mu Feng would actually know the myriad yin true scripture. This had truly exceeded his expectations. Master. The 365 cultivators had lifeless gazes as they knelt on the ground and shouted, "What's going on? Those 365 cultivators have been controlled?" The pupils of many people in the surroundings shrank as they started to discuss spiritedly. They were extremely astonished by the strange actions of those 365 cultivators. "All of you, enter the 365 stone doors." Master Mu Feng indifferently pointed at the entrance of the Emperor's tomb as he instructed. Yes, the 365 cultivators nodded their heads. Under Master Mu Feng's instructions, they flew towards the entrance of the Emperor's tomb. After the 365 cultivators disappeared into the entrance, Master Mu Feng waved his sleeve, and 365 glowing spots appeared in front of him. "Master Mu Feng, this is?" Yi Wuxian asked in astonishment. These light spots correspond to the signs of life of the 365 martial artists. If the light spot is extinguished, it means that the martial artist in the light spot is dead. I think that the entrance of the stone door where the martial artist in the last light spot is the correct entrance to the Emperor's tomb, Master Mu Feng said indifferently. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of many people in the surroundings turned cold. This Grandmaster Mu Feng really regarded human lives as worthless. He had implanted slave seals into the sea of consciousness of 365 cultivators, and used their lives to find the correct entrance to the Tharch tomb. How ruthless, Zhuowen thought to himself. Rustle, rustle. Not long after, the light spots in front of Grandmaster Mu Feng began to extinguish one after another. In the blink of an eye, dozens of light spots had been extinguished. So fast. Looking at the dozens of light spots that were instantly extinguished, many of the surrounding martial artists were shocked. Fortunately, they did not rashly enter the stone door. Otherwise, they would not even know how they died. After the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, there were only 2 light spots left in front of Grandmaster Mu Feng. Everyone knew that they were about to find the correct stone door's entrance. Rustle. Finally, there were only 2 light spots left. The light spot on the left was extinguished, leaving only the light spot on the right. Grandmaster Mu Feng, who was originally squinting his eyes, suddenly opened them. After which, he held the light spot in his hand and rushed towards an unremarkable stone door in front of the Tharch tomb. That is the true entrance to the Tharch tomb. Looking at Grandmaster Mu Feng's actions, many people held their breaths. They were constantly paying attention to which stone door Grandmaster Mu Feng would choose. Grandmaster Mu Feng paced back and forth on the stone door in front of him for a while before stopping in front of the unremarkable stone door. He said indifferently, "This is the correct entrance to the Tharch tomb. Let's go." The moment Grandmaster Mu Feng finished speaking, the warriors who were observing the scene immediately went crazy. Soon after, the sound of something tearing through the air resounded as those warriors charged into the stone door with fervent looks in their eyes. Grandmaster Mu Feng did not stop them. Instead, he slowly landed at the side and silently looked at the martial artists who were crazily rushing in. Yi Wuxia, who was originally unable to restrain the excitement in his heart, naturally noticed that Grandmaster Mufeng was not in a hurry to enter. His heart slowly calmed down and his eyes flickered. He was actually not in a hurry to enter. Azura Island, Horizon Island, and Sea Heart Island also noticed the abnormality of Grandmaster Mufeng and the Night Demon Island. They all stopped in their original positions and did not follow the crowd into the stone door. Instead, they waited for Grandmaster Mufeng's next move. When enough martial artists had rushed into the stone door, Grandmaster Mufeng waved his hand at the Dean and Elder Wuxia. The two of them nodded in understanding and brought the people behind them to Grandmaster Mufeng's side. "Let's go in now." Grandmaster Mufeng said such irrelevant words and led the upper echelons and genius students of the excellent Spirit Island into the stone door. However, Zhuowen, who was following behind, sharply noticed that the light spot on Grandmaster Mufeng's hand had already become dim. It was like a candle in the wind that could be extinguished at any time. Needless to say, the last light spot was about to be extinguished. There should be some unknown danger within the stone door. However, why did Grandmaster Mufeng hide all of this? At the same time, Zhuowen also noticed the calm expressions on the faces of the other 4 island masters. Suddenly, he seemed to have discovered something. Cannon fodder? Zhuowen suddenly thought of a possibility. Perhaps the 365 entrances of the Emperor's tomb could lead to the depths of the Emperor's tomb. However, every single entrance had layers of mechanisms. Moreover, the mechanisms at the entrances were probably extremely powerful. Therefore, they needed cannon fodder to weaken, or even trigger the mechanisms at the entrances, so that they could smoothly enter the depths of the Emperor's tomb. After all, the 365 entrances were too scattered. If all the warriors were to gather at one entrance, they would be able to eliminate the mechanisms at that entrance to the greatest extent. Sure enough, miserable shrieks rang out one after another from the stone door. This caused the people behind Grandmaster Mufeng to reveal astonished expressions. Wasn't this stone door the true entrance? Could it be that there was some kind of danger inside? "Let's go in," Grandmaster Mufeng faintly said as he stepped into the stone door. The Dean, Elder Wuxia, and the rest looked at each other. Although they were extremely puzzled by the miserable shrieks that rang out from the stone door, they still chose to believe Grandmaster Mufeng in the end. After Grandmaster Mufeng and his group entered, Yi Wuxin led the martial artists from the Night Demon Island and followed closely behind. Following them were the Azura Island, Horizon Island and Sea Heart Island. In the pitch-black passageway, a thick smell of blood spread out, causing everyone to frown. This was because they discovered that the smell of blood was extremely fresh. It was obvious that it had just been emitted. In other words, there should be quite a number of martial artists who had died in the passageway. Finally, the group walked out of the passageway and arrived at an empty space that was neither big nor small. Corpses were strewn all over the empty space. These corpses belonged to the martial artists who had just entered the Emperor's tomb. Arrows that flickered with lightning were stuck in the chests of these martial artists. The lightning on these arrows was purple in color. It was actually the might of the 9 heavens' purple profound lightning. If it pierced through the body, the yuanying within the body would be destroyed by the might of the 9 heavens' purple profound lightning and lose all of its vitality. Ding ding ding. Suddenly, the sound of metal colliding rang out from the front. It immediately attracted the attention of Grandmaster Mufeng and his group. "Let's go and take a look," Grandmaster Mufeng said as he led the group forward. The other 4 island masters also silently followed behind. In front of the empty space there was a large hall. Behind the large hall, there were more than 10 passageways. At this moment, countless lightning bolts filled the large hall. Lightning flickered, stimulating everyone's eyes. When Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes, he discovered that there were figures formed by lightning bolts in the large hall. These figures were clad in lightning armor. They held lightning bows in their left hands and arrows in their right hands. They pulled the lightning bows into a full moon shape. With the release of their fingers, the lightning arrows turned into arrows that shot out from the bowstring. Countless lightning arrows fell like raindrops, densely covering the entire large hall. At this moment, there were many martial artists in the large hall. When these martial artists saw the lightning arrows shooting towards them, their expressions changed. Each of them unleashed their own defensive measures, hoping to block these frightening lightning arrows. Whoosh! 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 As the lightning arrows fell, countless miserable shrieks resounded. Grandmaster Mu Feng and his group, who were at the entrance of the large hall, took a few steps back and left the range of the lightning arrows. There were too many martial artists in the large hall. Although there were many lightning arrows, they only injured and killed a portion of the martial artists. The majority of the martial artists' defensive measures were able to block the lightning arrows. Everyone, let's work together and break through these martial artists. Once we break through, we will be able to break through the entrance and enter the deepest part of the emperor's tomb. It was unknown who shouted from within the crowd. The martial artists, who were originally trembling in fear, regained their senses. That person was right. If they did not work together to break through these martial artists, they would probably die here. Let's go together. Voices echoed one after another. Then, the cultivators in the hall unleashed their strongest attacks one after another. At the same time, they turned into a terrifying stream of people and shot out violently, rushing towards the thunderous figure in front of them. Boom! Boom! Amidst the intense collisions, the screams of the cultivators spread throughout the entire hall. Then, under the concerted attacks of the numerous cultivators, a gap appeared in the lightning-like silhouette that was like an iron wall. Everyone, let's continue. We will be able to break through these martial artists very soon. Looking at the gap, many cultivators revealed hopeful looks in their eyes. One after another, they unleashed even more terrifying attacks, wanting to completely blast these lightning figures away. Roar! Just as the lightning silhouettes were about to push the huge number of lightning silhouettes away, the lightning silhouettes roared one after another. Then terrifying lightning spread out and swallowed all the lightning silhouettes. Chapter 1233. Earth. The huge thunder dragon roared and swung its terrifying thunder tail. Nearly 100 warriors at the front spat out mouthfuls of blood as they were sent flying. Boom, boom, boom. The moment these 100 or so martial artists were sent flying, the other martial artists in the hall revealed looks of dread as they retreated. The aura on Lei Long's body was too terrifying. It was like a mountain, causing everyone to feel suffocated. This lightning dragon is likely at the intermediate D level. Moreover, it is likely to be one of the stronger intermediate D level existences. Grandmaster Mu Feng spoke in a deep voice at the entrance of the hall. Grandmaster Mu Feng, do we need to take action? The Dean and Elder Wuxia came to Elder Mu Feng's side and asked. Grandmaster Mu Feng nodded and said, "It is quite easy for the few of us to enter the entrance on the other side of the hall. However, it will not be so easy for these little fellows to charge through this lightning dragon." The Dean and Elder Wuxia understood his meaning after hearing these words. If they wanted Bai Yu and the rest of the younger generation to enter the Emperor tomb, they as seniors would have to take action. I believe that the 4 island masters will not mind helping us hold back this lightning dragon, right? The Dean suddenly smiled and spoke to the 4 island masters behind him. Yi Wu Xian, Azura Li Di, and the other 2 cursed in their hearts when they saw the smile on the Dean's face. However, the auspicious God Island had Grandmaster Mu Feng. Therefore, they were not willing to offend him too much. They could only agree, of course. We will work together to hold back this beast. The Dean nodded. He immediately turned around and stared at Zhuowen and the rest. Once we have completely held back the lightning dragon, the few of you should move quickly and quickly enter the tunnel behind. Zhuowen, Moi and Wushang and the rest naturally nodded their heads repeatedly. Elder Wuxia also turned around to instruct the 5 geniuses from the inner academy. After he finished instructing them, they rushed toward the lightning dragon in front of them, under the lead of Grandmaster Mu Feng. Look, it is the island masters of the 5 strongest islands and Grandmaster Mu Feng. Quite a number of people in the hall revealed an excited expression when they saw the 7 figures rushing out. They knew that with these 7 people taking action, this lightning dragon would be relatively easy to deal with. At that time, they would be able to take advantage of the chaos and enter the tunnel. Bastard, surrender! Grandmaster Mu Feng indifferently said. With a wave of his sleeve, his frightening mental energy transformed into a huge mental energy hand that descended from the sky like a mountain and enveloped the lightning dragon. At the instant when Grandmaster Mu Feng unleashed his attack, the other 6 people also unleashed their own attacks and suppressed the lightning dragon with a momentum that could topple mountains and overturn seas. Lei Long had also sensed the terrifying aura of the 7 people who had suddenly appeared. Its dragon eyes were filled with fear. However, it did not feel any fear because of this. Instead, it roared and monstrous thunderbolts surged out from its body. These thunderbolts were like sharp swords as they shot out. Boom! Boom! The frightening lightning sword collided with the 7 attacks. Soon after, an extremely frightening lightning glow erupted. The blazing light caused the other warriors in the hall to involuntarily narrow their eyes. Thud thud thud. One could see that the lightning dragon emitted a sharp miserable cry within the endless lightning glow. Immediately, it was forced back by the 7 attacks. The dragon tail, which was originally covering the 12+ tunnels behind it, had also shifted. Let's go! The instant the tunnel was revealed, Zhuowen let out a low cry. He took a step forward and led Moyan Wuxiang, Jianan and the rest as they rushed towards the empty tunnel. They knew that this was the opportunity that Grandmaster Mu Feng had created for them to enter the Emperor Tomb. They must not let go of this opportunity. In the blink of an eye, Zhuowen's group had already reached the entrance of the tunnel. However, Zhuowen did not enter first. Instead, he gestured to Moyan Wuxiang and the rest and said, "All of you enter first. I will follow behind you." Moyan Wuxiang nodded and softly said, "You should be careful." As he spoke, Moyan Wuxiang stepped on the ground and entered the depths of the tunnel. Following him were Qingyin, Jianan, Gatha and Emo Lingtian. The 5 geniuses from the Inner Academy and Evil Moon entered the tunnel beside Zhuowen. During the period of time that Evil Moon was on the Sun Shuttle and Black Wind Island, he was quite familiar with the 5 geniuses from the Inner Academy. Their relationship was quite good. Therefore, the 5 geniuses from the Inner Academy took good care of Evil Moon. Among the 6 of them, Bai Yu, who was the strongest, was at the back. Zhuowen merely glanced indifferently at Bai Yu, who was at the entrance of the tunnel beside him. He planned to enter the tunnel. However, the instant he stepped into the tunnel, an air-splitting sound rushed over. Oh! Zhuowen's pupil shrunk. Immediately, he saw Bai Yu flick his finger. A blazing light surged out from his fingertip. It was like a light arrow that rushed out and directly bombarded Zhuowen. Looking at the light arrow that rushed over, Zhuowen's eyes were extremely gloomy. Bai Yu was too despicable to attack him at this critical juncture. Zhuowen's right hand was suffused with Buddhist light. He suddenly slammed his palm against the light arrow. After that, he felt a huge force and took a few steps back. The instant he stabilized his body, Bai Yu revealed a strange smile and said, "Good luck." After speaking, Bai Yu took a step forward and disappeared into the passageway at the side. Zhuowen Gang was just about to give chase when an ominous premonition rose in his heart. Following which, a terrifying sharp whistle of air being torn apart sounded from behind him. Not good. Zhuowen suddenly turned around and saw the huge tail of the lightning dragon, which was wrapped in monstrous lightning, directly smashing down on his head. Countless strong winds blew, causing Zhuowen's long hair to dance. The scattered lightning landed on Zhuowen's face, causing his cheeks to feel a little numb. Buddha's eye. Without thinking, Zhuowen opened his Buddha's eye. His body turned into an immortal and indestructible Buddha body. Golden Buddhist light spread. At the same time, Zhuowen grasped the light wheel at the back of his head and held it horizontally in front of him. Rumble. The terrifying lightning dragon tail slammed on the light wheel, causing crackling sounds like firecrackers to ring out. Then, Zhuowen clearly felt that the lightning flowed along the surface of the light wheel and spread to his hands and body, causing his body to feel numb. Thump! 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 Zhuowen groaned and continuously retreated. His eyes were filled with horror. This lightning dragon was so terrifying. Just a sweep of the dragon tail gave him a great and terrifying pressure. Even in his Buddha body, he felt that it was somewhat difficult to bear. The blood in his body boiled, and he was unable to calm down for a long time. Rumble! Countless lightning-filled dragon tails smashed into the ground not far from Zhuo. The frightening force caused the ground to crack. One could only hear a swoosh sound. The moment the dragon tails landed on the ground, they swept towards Zhuo without losing any momentum. Their target was the already retreating Zhuo. Damn it, it's still coming? Seeing the lightning dragon tail sweeping over again, Zhuo could not help but curse. Just as he was about to attack again, a stalwart figure blocked in front of him and blocked the dragon tail. Zhuo took a look and saw that it was the Dean Moyan Baiyan. Zhuo, go in first. Moyan Baiyan said to Zhuo in a deep voice. Thank you, Dean. Zhuo's eyes revealed a grateful expression. He nodded and took a step forward. Like a black lightning bolt, he rushed out and entered the tunnel from earlier. While Master Mu Feng's group of 7 were in the process of fighting the lightning dragon, there were quite a number of people in the hall who were trying to take advantage of the chaos to enter the tunnel behind the lightning dragon. Naturally, there were also some unlucky fellows who were coincidentally swept by the dragon's tail due to their weak strength. They were directly turned into a bloody mist and couldn't be more dead than they were. Let's go. There is no need to be entangled with this beast. Master Mu Feng suddenly opened his mouth and said, This beast is not very strong. However, its skin is rough and its flesh is thick. Even with the few of us joining hands, we are still unable to completely destroy it. We can only suppress it. Yi Wuxing frowned and said. Azura Li Di chuckled and said, If you were to use your full strength, it would not be difficult to finish off this lightning dragon, right? The few people present did not speak. None of them had used their full strength during the process of dealing with the lightning dragon. After all, they had entered the Emperor Tomb and were considered competitors. Hence, they would not use their trump cards so early. Therefore, all of them held back during the process of dealing with the lightning dragon. This was also the main reason why the lightning dragon was not killed by the combined attacks of 6 intermediate D-level experts. However, even if it was not killed, the lightning dragon was currently somewhat exhausted. Its large dragon eyes drooped as it panted heavily. The sound of heavy breathing was emitted from it like a fan. Let's go. These dozen or so tunnels should lead to different places. I will make a move first. Master Mu Feng faintly said before randomly choosing a tunnel and entering it. Moyan Baiyan and Elder Wuxia naturally followed closely behind Master Mu Feng. Let's go. The 4 island masters Yi Wuxing, Azura Li Di Tianjuya and Yang Haixin looked at each other. Vigilance was revealed in their eyes as they each chose a different tunnel. The instant the 4 of them disappeared into the tunnel, the countless remaining cultivators in the large hall also rushed out like locusts and entered the tunnel that they had chosen. After walking out of the passageway, Zhuo stood at the exit of the passageway and silently stared at the scene before him. His gaze flickered indeterminately because what appeared before him was actually an extremely large expanse of land. Moreover, it was a withered and cracked land. Buildings were scattered all over the land. These buildings were scattered messily in every corner of the land. However, what surprised Zhuo was that most of these buildings were in a dilapidated state. It was as if an earth-shattering battle had occurred here. Very quickly, Zhuo noticed that at the center of this vast land, there was a continuous ravine that was close to 1,000 feet long. Within the ravine was a pitch-black abyss. No one could clearly see what was within the ravine. It seems like the dozen or so tunnels in the large hall should all lead to this land. It's just that the locations of the exits are different. Chapter 1234. The Heart of the Emperor. Whoosh. Whoosh. At the exit of the passageway Zhuo was in, the sound of something breaking through the air resounded. A considerable number of cultivators appeared. These cultivators should have chosen the same passageway as Zhuo. After these warriors came out, they first glanced at Zhuo, who was standing at the exit of the passage. Then, all of their attention was focused on the huge land in front of them, as well as the dilapidated buildings standing on the land. Even the huge gully in the middle of the land. Is this the interior of the Emperor's tomb? The surrounding warriors muttered softly, their eyes filled with shock. Go. Let's go deeper and take a look. There must be a heart of imperial power inside. We might even be able to obtain the inheritance of a martial emperor. Someone in the crowd said. Then he shot towards the ground like an arrow leaving the bow. The people behind him also reacted. This was the emperor's tomb. The things inside were extremely precious to Emperor realm experts. If they didn't hurry up, the things inside would be snatched away. Whoosh! Whoosh! Immediately countless sonic booms rang out. The cultivators at the exit of the passageway all rushed out in a hurry, all for the sake of gaining the initiative in this emperor's tomb. Zhuowen stood quietly on the spot with his brows slightly furrowed. The passage that he had entered was the passage that Moyan Wuxiang and the others were in. What made him puzzled was that he had lost contact with Moyan Wuxiang and the others when he entered the exit. He didn't even see them at the exit. Maybe they have already gone ahead to explore this vast land. Xiao Hei's voice slowly rang out in his mind, causing Zhuowen to nod in agreement. Big brother Han Tian and the others have also entered this land, but they seem to be a little far away from us. Suddenly, Zhuowen sensed the aura of his devil doppelganger. He knew that the devil doppelganger that followed Taimo Lord and Lu Hantian had also come in. However, the aura he sensed was extremely weak. It should be because they were too far away. Since this place is called the Emperor's Tomb, there must be a lot of good things. However, I'm afraid that it's also very dangerous. Be careful. Xiao Hei's voice rang out again. Zhuowen slightly nodded, looking cautious. Let's go. Taking a step forward, Zhuowen was like a bolt of black lightning, silently following behind the countless figures in front of him. Although he was quite worried about Kanan and the others, with Moyan Wuxiang and Soft Note by their side, they should not be in too much danger. Even though Moyan and Qing Yin were still at the top of the Celestial Zune layer, they were still in the top 5 of the Celestial Zune layer. Their fighting strength was terrifying, comparable to the strength of the first layer of the Great Emperor layer. In addition, Moyan was the granddaughter of Bai Yan, Mo Yan, the dean of the Great Emperor layer. She would definitely have some powerful life-saving methods. Ordinary cultivators of the second layer of the Great Emperor layer wouldn't be able to defeat her easily. Everywhere he passed, Zhuowen saw numerous dilapidated buildings. It seemed like a peerless battle had occurred here all those years ago. After all, Zhuowen was able to discern from these dilapidated buildings that this place used to be an extremely bustling city, and it was the place where the strongest experts of the imperial region had settled down. Back then, why did this place become the grave of the great emperors of the great imperial region? Zhuowen grew increasingly curious about the truth of what had happened in this land back then, as he looked at the ruined scene below. However, he also knew that it was useless no matter how curious he was. Even Grandmaster Mu Feng did not know what had happened back then, let alone him. Suddenly, Zhuowen noticed that the numerous cultivators who were flying in front of him had slowed down and were descending towards an open space in front of him. Without even thinking about it, Zhuowen naturally followed the crowd and landed on the open space. One could see that there was also a cluster of buildings standing in this empty space. The difference was that this cluster of buildings was much more complete than the others, and was not as dilapidated. The most eye-catching thing was that there was actually a temple-like building in the middle of this cluster of buildings. Under the pure white dome, there were dozens of white pillars that were as thick as a couple of people hugging together. At this moment, many cultivators were gathered outside the temple. Zhuowen also landed and blended into the crowd. There was no door around the temple, and the interior was completely exposed. Through the thick pillars, there was a rather clean hall. There was a red carpet in the center of the hall, and the red carpet extended from the depths of the hall to the entrance of the temple. On both sides of the red carpet, there were actually figures sitting cross-legged. At a closer look, these figures were pitch black and withered like corpses. The movements of these figures were extremely uniform. All of them raised their heads and looked towards the depths of the red carpet. It was as if there was something important in the depths of the red carpet that they needed to look up to before they died. In the depths of the red carpet, there was a white jade altar. At the top of the altar, a heart was constantly beating. Moreover, as the heart beat, waves of star force spread out. The star force was extremely vast and dense. At the same time, below the altar, there was an especially large corpse sitting cross-legged. This corpse was much more robust than the corpses on both sides of the red carpet. It was several times their size. If it stood up, it would probably be several meters tall, almost like a small giant. This is the heart of imperial power? Feeling the powerful star force spreading from the white jade altar, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He could not help but think to himself. Before entering the emperor's tomb, he had heard that there were many hearts of imperial power in the emperor's tomb. This kind of thing was very beneficial for celestial venerables to advance to the emperor realm. If a peak celestial venerables had this kind of heart of imperial power, they could directly break through to the emperor realm. Not only Zhuowen, but many cultivators around recognized the true identity of this heart. It was the heart of imperial power that they had always wanted to obtain. This kind of thing was a fatal temptation for cultivators below the emperor realm. At this moment, the atmosphere outside the temple had become eerily silent. There was also the sound of rapid breathing. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the heart of imperial power, their eyes full of greed. Zhuowen even saw many Emperor Realm cultivators among this group of cultivators. These Emperor Realm cultivators were also greedily staring at the heart of imperial power. Logically speaking, the heart of imperial power was not very useful for Emperor Realm cultivators. However, these Emperor Realm cultivators usually obtained the heart of imperial power to give it to their juniors to help them break through to the Emperor Realm. After all, a heart of imperial power meant that there was a possibility of the birth of an Emperor Realm cultivator. After a brief moment of silence, the sound of something breaking through the air broke the silence in the surroundings. Immediately, many warriors outside the temple rushed into the temple with scarlet eyes, as if they had gone mad. Zhuowen stood outside the temple and stared at the cultivators who were rushing into the temple. He frowned slightly. The corpses in the temple were too strange. He did not dare to act rashly. Moreover, he was extremely confident in his own strength. Even if someone had obtained the heart of imperial power, he could snatch it from that person. There was no need for him to take the risk of entering the temple. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. More and more people rushed into the temple. The moment they stepped into the temple, the empty eyes of the corpses on both sides of the red carpet lit up with green flames. It was like a ghost fire in the middle of the night. It looked extremely strange. Kill! A deep voice reverberated in the temple. The corpses on both sides of the red carpet suddenly moved. Then their withered arms clenched into fists and violently punched the invading cultivators. Boom! Boom! Miserable shrieks rang out. The dozen or so warriors who were charging at the front were completely caught off guard and were viciously hit by the mummy's fists. Then, without even a groan, they exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Hiss! Gasps rang out one after another. Those cultivators at the back all stopped in their tracks and slowly took a few steps back. They stared at the mummies in the temple that had suddenly come to life with terrified gazes. There were more than a dozen corpses in the temple. When they stood up, crackling sounds were heard. It was crisp and ear-piercing. Blood-red flames erupted from the hollow eyes of the gigantic corpse that was seated at the center of the altar. When it stood up, it was actually 50 feet tall. Its exposed upper body was extremely shriveled, and one could even see the rows of protruding ribs on its body. The other warriors in the temple retreated one after another. The dozen or so warriors who had been killed in seconds were all above the late-stage Heavenly Venerate realm. There were even peak Heavenly Venerates among them. Yet, they were unable to resist the attacks of the mummies. Everyone knew that these seemingly unremarkable mummies were at least peak Heavenly Venerates. As for the giant mummy standing in front of the altar, its power was even more terrifying. Its strength was probably above the Emperor realm. Seeing this lineup, many cultivators decided to retreat. This temple was not so easy to barge into, and the heart of imperial power was not so easy to obtain. The might displayed by these mummies was enough to make them suffer a lot. Whoa! The giant mummified corpse roared. Suddenly, the green flames in the eyes of more than a dozen mummified corpses in the temple burned even more vigorously. They took a step forward and turned into more than a dozen black lightning bolts, shooting toward the many cultivators in the temple. It was a one-sided massacre. Let's go. Many cultivators who were not strong enough saw the cultivators around them fall. They were horrified and immediately retreated from the temple. The corpses that were chasing after them seemed to have some kind of restriction. They could not step out of the temple at all. When they reached the edge of the temple, they stopped. As for the peak Empyrean martial artists, they all stayed in the temple and fought with the dried corpses. The heart of imperial power was just too attractive to them. It was impossible for them to give up. The three of us will work together to defeat the giant corpse. As for the ownership of the heart of imperial power, we will fight for it later. Chapter 1235. Snatch. The three Emperor Realm cultivators were all first-level great emperors. When the three of them joined forces against the giant mummy, the other cultivators in the temple were disappointed. They knew that if the three Emperor Realm cultivators managed to defeat the giant mummy, they wouldn't get a share of the heart of imperial power. Some of them even hoped that the three Emperor Realm cultivators would fail to obtain the heart of imperial power. Boom boom boom. Soon, the three Emperor Realm cultivators were engaged in a fierce battle with the giant corpse. The Emperor's aura and the power of the stars overflowed in all directions, causing the atmosphere in the temple to stagnate to the extreme. Terrifying yuan qi gushed out like a raging dragon, lingering in the surroundings. The blood-red flames in the giant mummy's eyes burned brighter and brighter as it stared at the three Emperor Realm cultivators. The chilling intent in its eyes became even more intense. With a roar, the mummy's withered arms swung out violently. Brilliant blood-red flames surged out of its body and surrounded it. Its arms bloomed like flowers of blood as it blasted towards the three Emperor Realm cultivators. Boom boom boom. In an instant, the intense blood flame and the frightening yuan power collided, causing an extremely deafening muffled sound to resound. Waves of energy ripples spread out in the surroundings, causing the entire temple to violently shake and tremble under the undulations of the energy ripples. The dozen or so small corpses and other peak Empyrean martial artists that had been fighting in the temple all stopped when they sensed the terrifying fluctuations of the battle. The martial artists all retreated out of the temple, while the dozen or so small corpses silently retreated to the edge of the temple. They stared at the battle in the center with dread in their eyes. A battle between Emperor Realm cultivators wasn't something they could interfere with. Although these mummies didn't have much intelligence, they were innately afraid of the Emperor aura of the Emperor Realm cultivators. Naturally, they wouldn't commit suicide without fear of death. Bang bang bang. 3 muffled groans resounded. Immediately, the 3 Emperor Realm cultivators in the middle of the battle in the temple groaned and retreated dozens of steps back, almost to the edge of the temple. The giant mummy's body was burning with blood-red flames, its eyes red with anger, and its aura terrifying. Even 3 great emperors aren't a match for this giant mummy. Outside the temple, many cultivators felt their hearts turn cold. They knew that if these 3 martial emperors couldn't obtain the heart of imperial power, there was no need to talk about the cultivators below the martial emperor realm. There's no need to hold back. Use your full strength to kill this beast, shouted the youngest of the 3 great emperors. He was about 30 years old. He released his armor soul, which was a gigantic beetle. It was pitch black and looked extremely tough. The moment this person unleashed his armor spirit, the other 2 also did not hold back and unleashed their own armor spirits. They knew that if they did not use their full strength, they would not be able to deal with this huge mummy. After all, the blood flame that was emitted from the latter's body was extremely powerful. Not only did it possess defensive capabilities, but it also possessed an extremely powerful offensive strength. Boom! Boom! The moment the 3 of them unleashed their respective armor souls, they immediately launched a powerful attack and rushed toward the giant mummy in the center. The giant mummy also felt the terrifying aura from the 3 great emperors. Its blood-red eyes revealed a rare tinge of fear. It roared and waved its arms violently. The blood-red flames swept out and turned into 3 blood pillars, surrounding its body and shooting towards the 3 great emperors. Break! The 3 great emperors shouted in unison. The armor spirits on their bodies unleashed a terrifying power, instantly destroying the 3 blood pillars. Then they continued to attack the giant mummy. Boom! A muffled explosion sounded. The giant mummy was forced back dozens of steps under the attack of the three great emperors. The blood-red flames around its body seemed to have dimmed. It suppressed. Looking at this scene, many of the surrounding people narrowed their eyes and began to feel anxious. They knew that once the three great emperors completely suppressed the giant mummy, the heart of imperial power would be snatched away by them. Moreover, there were more than 10 small mummies at the edge of the temple eyeing them covetously. Many of the cultivators outside the temple did not dare to enter the temple and seize the opportunity to snatch the heart of imperial power. Even if there were no small mummies in the temple, the other cultivators would not dare to snatch the heart of imperial power. After all, once the heart of imperial power was snatched away, they would have to face the encirclement of the three great emperors. At that time, even if they did not die, they would still die. Dang! 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 While everyone's attention was attracted by the battle between the three great emperors and the giant mummy, the crisp sound of footsteps suddenly rang out, attracting the attention of many cultivators outside the temple. Shifting their gazes slightly, everyone's gazes landed on the owner of the footsteps. They saw a tall and straight young man wearing a black robe walking out from the crowd step by step, before he walked up to the temple. This guy, what is he trying to do? Looking at the young man entering the temple, the same thought popped into everyone's minds at the same time. What was he trying to do? The instant the young man entered the temple, the green eyes of the dozens of small mummies gathered on his body. A chilling aura spread out, and their gazes were like that of hunters staring at their prey. They were extremely unfriendly. Is this guy trying to snatch the heart of imperial power, while the three great emperors are fighting with the giant mummy? Is he courting death? The moment the young man in black robe stepped into the temple and faced the 10 small mummies, the other cultivators outside the temple all guessed the young man's intention. He was trying to seize the opportunity to snatch the heart of imperial power. The young man who stepped into the temple was none other than Zhuowen, who had been silently following behind the crowd. His Buddhist and demon avatars had both broken through to the imperial power realm. Only his original body, because of Xiao He, was unable to break through. Therefore, his desire for the heart of imperial power was more intense than the others. After recovering from their shock, many cultivators shook their heads, wondering if Zhuowen was crazy. Not to mention the three great emperors who had already suppressed the giant mummy. The 10 small mummies at the edge of the temple were not something a peak heavenly master could easily deal with. Moreover, Zhuowen's aura was only that of a peak heavenly master. Wasn't he courting death by facing the 10 small mummies alone? The three great emperors who had been fighting with the giant mummy also noticed Zhuowen entering the temple and sneered. They only glanced at him and then ignored him, focusing on the giant mummy in front of them. They knew that based on their current situation, it wouldn't be long before they could completely annihilate the giant mummy. Once the giant mummy was annihilated, the three of them would probably have to fight for the heart of imperial power. Therefore, while suppressing the giant mummy, the three of them were secretly wary of each other. At this moment, they had all restrained part of their strength, so that they could snatch the heart of imperial power after the giant mummy was completely annihilated. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, at the edge of the temple, more than a dozen small mummies finally moved. They turned into more than a dozen black lightning bolts and rushed out, surrounding Zhuowen in an encirclement. Swoosh! An air-rending sound rang out from behind Zhuowen. One of the small mummies had already launched an attack, and this attack was like an alarm. The rest of the mummies also attacked. Their withered arms were like deadly hooks, whistling through the wind and crushing towards Zhuowen, trying to tear him into pieces. Sword fire ultimacy! Zhuowen opened his eyes, and a terrifying mental strength swept out from between his eyebrows. At the same time, the ultimate infinite sword array hidden in the spirit ring also turned into rays of cold light and swept out. Suddenly, countless flames swept out, with Zhuowen as the center, forming a terrifying ring-shaped sea of fire. Sizzle! 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 The small mummies seemed to be motionless, as they were completely annihilated by the raging sea of fire. Then, Zhuowen kept his sleeves, and the flames on the surface of the ultimate infinite sword array slowly receded, circling around Zhuowen as if nothing had happened. Zhuowen calmly walked towards the white jade altar in the center of the temple. The scene of Zhuowen casually annihilating the small mummies was deeply imprinted in the minds of many warriors outside the temple. More than a dozen small mummies, whose strength was comparable to a peak heavenly master, had been cleanly annihilated by a young man at the peak heavenly master level. The three martial emperors, who were secretly on guard against the other party, were also attracted by the commotion outside the temple. Their eyes fell on the edge of the temple, and when they saw more than a dozen small mummies being annihilated in an instant, their expressions changed slightly. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Their gazes quickly fell on Zhuowen, who was walking straight towards the altar. The youngest martial emperor among them shouted coldly, "Stop. If you dare to snatch the heart of the emperor in front of us, you'll have to bear the consequences." The three of them were now suppressing the giant mummy, so they really did not have time to snatch the heart of the emperor. Otherwise, based on their character, they would have already taken the heart of the emperor. Zhuowen's footsteps paused slightly, and he tilted his head slightly, looking at the three martial emperors with unfriendly gazes, and said indifferently, "Of course." As he said that, he stepped onto the altar in front of the three martial emperors, and with a suction force from his right hand, Zhuowen took the heart of the emperor into his hand. Suddenly, he felt an extremely strong star power emanating from the beating heart. This star power penetrated into his body through the acupoints all over his body, and he could not help but reveal a satisfied expression. "You're courting death. Why don't you quickly put down the heart of the emperor?" The three martial emperors' eyes suddenly turned red, and they shouted in unison. The three of them had worked so hard to suppress the giant mummy, and now a peak heavenly master had taken advantage of it. How could they bear the feeling of working for someone else? Chapter 1236. Not enough. When Zhuowen casually put away the heart of the imperial power, the atmosphere became quiet. Many cultivators outside the temple looked at Zhuowen strangely. This guy was really bold. He dared to put away the heart of the imperial power in a spirit ring in front of three great emperor realm cultivators. Although many cultivators were shocked when Zhuowen used the sword Fire Ultimacy to destroy more than 10 small corpses, they still didn't think highly of Zhuowen compared to the three great emperor realm cultivators. "You're courting death." The three great emperor realm cultivators roared. They abandoned the giant corpses they were suppressing and rushed towards Zhuowen. Their soul armor exuded a terrifying aura. It was like three terrifying mountains crushing down from the sky towards Zhuowen. This guy is finished. The anger of three great emperor realm cultivators is not something a peak heavenly master like him can handle. Seeing the three great emperor realm cultivators join attack, many people outside the temple were uncertain. Some even looked at Zhuowen with disdain, as if he was already a dead man. Slightly raising his head, Zhuowen calmly looked at the three great emperor realm cultivators. A crack appeared in front of his forehead and golden light poured out. The Buddha's eye appeared where his third eye should be. Zhuowen's entire body seemed to be plated with gold. A golden halo appeared behind his head. Then Zhuowen slowly stretched out his right hand. Suddenly, the Buddha's light appeared and turned into a huge Buddha's palm. It slammed down from the top. Boom! The Buddha's light exploded. Then, the three great emperor realm cultivators' expressions completely froze. They found that their soul armor had been completely stopped by the power of the Buddha's palm. "Break!" Zhuowen's emotionless voice rang out. The Buddha's palm howled with a terrifying gust of wind. After that, it completely crushed the three soul armors. The remaining force didn't diminish as it slammed into the three emperors. Pucci! The three great emperor realm cultivators spat out mouthfuls of blood. Their faces were as pale as snow. They stared at Zhuowen, who had transformed into a Buddha, and couldn't help but exclaim, "You're also a great emperor realm cultivator?" Zhuowen didn't say anything. He stepped out, and the Buddha's palm descended from the sky like a mountain. It crushed the three great emperor realm cultivators again, wanting to crush them completely. Run! Even their soul armor studio couldn't deal with the Buddha's palm. They knew that they were no match for Zhuowen and Buddha's palm. They didn't say anything. They didn't say anything and fled in a Buddha's studio. Boom! The Buddha's palm slammed into the center of the temple. The terrifying force caused the entire temple to shake violently. Countless fine stones fell from the top of the temple. Gulp! The sound of people swallowing their saliva slowly came from outside the temple. Countless cultivators were petrified as they stared at Zhuowen, who had transformed into a Buddha's body, and forced the 3 great Emperor Realm cultivators to flee. No one expected that Zhuowen could defeat 3 great Emperor Realm cultivators in one move. His strength was too terrifying. Zhuowen frowned when he saw the 3 great emperors running away. He didn't continue to chase after them. Just as he was about to stop, a loud roar echoed through the air. The giant corpse, which had been suppressed by the great emperors, roared at the sky and charged towards Zhuowen. The stench of blood filled the air and spread throughout the temple. Bastard, you're really courting death. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and a cold light burst out. Then he raised his right hand and countless Buddha's light gathered into a giant Buddha's palm. It slammed into the giant corpse and immediately smashed into the ground of the temple. A muffled boom resounded, causing the temple to tremble again. Unfortunately, the giant corpse didn't seem to care about its life. It was suppressed by the Buddha's palm and still howled loudly, as if it didn't fear death at all. Zhuowen couldn't be bothered with the giant corpse. After slamming it into the temple wall, he stepped out of the temple and instantly disappeared into the building complex. The cultivators outside the temple were all silent. No one dared to stop or snatch the heart of the imperial power from Zhuowen's hand. After all, Zhuowen was someone who could defeat 3 great Emperor Realm cultivators in one move. They would be courting death if they tried to stop him. Thousands of miles high in the sky, Zhuowen slowly sat cross-legged on the clouds. He waved his right hand, and the beating heart of the imperial power appeared in his hand. His eyes were burning with passion. It's said that a peak heavenly master who absorbs the heart of the imperial power can directly break through to the imperial power realm. I wonder if my original body can successfully break through to the imperial power realm after absorbing the heart of the imperial power. Zhuowen muttered softly as he held the heart of the imperial power. Try it first. Your original body can stay here and refine the heart of the imperial power. Your Buddha clone can continue to explore this land. This dragon lord can help you refine the heart of the imperial power as soon as possible. As for whether you can break through, I'm not too sure. Xiao Hei's voice rang out, causing Zhuowen to roll his eyes. If it weren't for this guy, how could it be so difficult for his original body to break through to the imperial power realm? That's the only way. With that, Zhuowen summoned his Buddha clone and gave him some instructions. He focused all his attention on refining the heart of the imperial power. The Buddha clone nodded and left, heading to explore other parts of the land. His Buddha doppelganger had a strand of his divine will, which was equivalent to him being there in person. Everything he saw could be transmitted to his main body. Therefore, Zhuowen was very assured to let his Buddha doppelganger continue to explore the land. This piece of land was extremely vast. The Buddha avatar passed by many buildings and saw many warriors exploring the various buildings. However, their harvest was not very good. 3 days later, the original body in the clouds slowly opened his eyes. There was a hint of sadness in his eyes. He could not help but curse softly. I've completely refined the heart of the imperial power, but it still hasn't allowed me to break through to the imperial power realm. Xiao Hei, who was on his shoulder, laughed dryly and said, Take it slow. Isn't it because you haven't accumulated enough? If you have accumulated enough, breaking through to the imperial power realm is a sure thing. Looking at Xiao Hei's calm expression, Zhuowen was speechless. He really wanted to go up and give it a slap. Wasn't it this guy's fault for making it so difficult for his original body to break through? Kid, you don't have to look at me like that. Since one heart of the imperial power is not enough, then 2, 3, or even more. As long as you accumulate enough star power in your body, breaking through to the imperial power realm will not be a problem, Xiao Hei said again. That's right. If 1 is not enough, then 2, or even more. Zhuowen was stunned. Immediately, a look of understanding appeared in his eyes. The biggest problem he faced in breaking through was the star power. As long as he accumulated enough star power, he would finally succeed in breaking through. In this vast land, it was impossible for there to be only one heart of the imperial power. It was very likely that there were other hearts of the imperial power, but he had not encountered them yet. Is there a situation with the demonic Dao doppelganger? Zhuan, who was deep in thought, was suddenly stunned. A strange look appeared in his eyes. Thousands of miles away from Zhuan's original body, there was a temple surrounded by buildings. At this moment, many cultivators had gathered around the temple. There were also many dried corpses sitting cross-legged in the temple. However, the strange thing was that although the cultivators surrounding the temple were eager to try, their eyes were filled with fear. They did not dare to enter the temple. This was because there were 6 figures slowly entering the temple. Moreover, the auras of these 6 figures were as vast as the sea. They were all martial emperors. These 6 people are the geniuses of Divine Academy. I know Xieyu. He's an outer court genius who recently advanced to the imperial power realm. I'm afraid he'll become an official disciple of the inner court soon. The other 5 are all official disciples of the inner court, especially Baiyu. It's said that he's a 4th-level martial emperor genius. He's extremely famous in the inner court sky capital peak. Outside the temple, there was a clamor. Everyone looked at the 6 figures entering the temple with fear in their eyes. Whether it was in terms of strength or background, these 6 people were not comparable to ordinary cultivators like them. Outside the temple, a group of people among the crowd stared indifferently at the 6 figures in the temple. The leader of this group was a strange young man with long black and red hair. His body was surrounded by rolling demonic aura, causing many people around him to involuntarily distance themselves from him. This young man was Zhuowen's demonic doppelganger. Beside demonic doppelganger, Taimo Lord and Lu Hantian stood silently, while Zhuowen, Luo Xing and Qing Lian stood quietly behind them. The imperial power heart is in this temple. Zhuowen, do you want to snatch it? Lu Hantian suddenly asked in a low voice. Demonic doppelganger Zhuowen nodded. Of course, but we'll have to wait until Baiyu and the others get the imperial power heart first. Then, we'll snatch it from Baiyu's hands. Lu Hantian nodded. He had no objections. Although Baiyu and the others had 6 martial emperors, the strongest was only Baiyu, who was a 4th-level martial emperor. The rest were all below the 4th-level martial emperor realm. Zhuowen alone could deal with Baiyu. Even more terrifying was Taimo Lord, who could probably fight against 5 of them alone. Therefore, Lu Hantian was not worried about not being able to snatch it from Baiyu and the others. Senior brother, what's on this altar should be the heart of imperial power. Although this thing isn't of much use to us, if we were to exchange it with the big families in the Divine Spectre realm, many people would be willing to pay a high price for this heart of imperial power. Lan Ju stared at the heart of imperial power on the altar, and said with a burning gaze. Baiyu nodded. The corpse in this temple is probably not simple. Let's get rid of it as soon as possible. Chapter 1237. Baiyu. With the lineup of Baiyu's group of 6, the mummies in the temple were naturally no match for them. In less than 10 breaths of time, all the mummies, including the giant mummy, were dealt with and turned to ashes. So strong! Many surrounding cultivators revealed looks of dread. The combat strength displayed by Baiyu's group of 6 was too terrifying. The mummies in the temple were extremely powerful, but they were easily dealt with by Baiyu's group. When Baiyu's group stepped out of the temple, the surrounding cultivators unconsciously opened up a path for them. They watched in awe as they walked out of the temple with the heart of imperial power. However, Baiyu and the rest did not walk far before their footsteps came to a halt. Baiyu, who was walking at the front, raised his head slightly and stared at Zhuo Wen's group of demonic path members who were blocking their path. He coldly said, "Is there a problem?" Because Zhuo Wen had used the 100 transformation divine art, his current appearance was extremely unfamiliar to Baiyu and the others. In addition, the demonic aura around Demon Dao Zhuowen's body was surging, so they naturally wouldn't associate him with Zhuowen's real body. Moreover, Baiyu also felt the powerful demonic aura around Demon Dao Zhuowen's body, so he rarely asked this question. After all, this young man in front of him was a terrifying demonic cultivator, and a demonic cultivator whose realm wasn't low. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, he didn't want to provoke such an existence. Hand over the heart of imperial power. Demon Dao Zhuowen slowly stretched out his right hand and said in a calm voice. His tone was extremely natural, as if it was natural for Bai Yu to hand over the heart of imperial power. As soon as these words came out, the surrounding atmosphere suddenly became a little dignified. Many cultivators stared at Demon Dao Zhuowen in astonishment. Although everyone could feel that the demonic youth's aura was extraordinary, his aura was still inferior to Bai Yu's. Even his lineup was inferior. After all, Bai Yu's side had 6 Emperor Realm cultivators, while Demon Dao Zhuowen's side only had 3 Emperor Realm cultivators. The remaining 3 were only peak Heavenly Venerables. It was obvious that the lineup of the 2 sides was completely unequal. What did you say? Bai Yu thought that he had heard wrongly. He stared sharply at Zhuowen and asked in surprise. Hand over the heart of the imperial power, Zhuowen said again without any hesitation. Bai Yu and the others fell into silence. Their eyes were fixed on Zhuowen. They couldn't figure out where this demonic youth got the courage to ask them for the heart of imperial power. Are you joking? Bai Yu narrowed his eyes as his voice turned cold. I'm serious. If you don't hand it over, then I can only take it by force. Zhuowen's eyes were indifferent as he spread out his hands. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Bai Yu and the others froze again. This demonic youth was too arrogant and conceited. He actually planned to snatch it from them. You are very confident. Bai Yu looked deeply at Zhuowen. He took a step forward, and a terrifying emperor's pressure spread out. Lanju, Dark Moon, and the others couldn't help but take a few steps back. They looked at each other in dismay, knowing that this demonic youth had truly angered Bai Yu. After all, Bai Yu was a genius of the inner court's capital Sky Peak. Moreover, his status was extremely high. For this demonic youth to so brazenly demand that he hand over the heart of the imperial power was absolutely an extremely arrogant provocation. The surrounding cultivators consciously retreated dozens of steps, opening up an open space. Whether it was Bai Yu or this demonic youth, their auras were extremely vast. If they really fought, the energy shockwaves that emanated from their bodies would be extremely terrifying. It would be difficult for them to withstand it, so it was better to retreat first. Zhuowen, are you confident? Lu Hantian asked in a low voice. Even though he knew that Zhuowen had killed a 4th-stage immortal emperor as a 3rd-stage immortal emperor, Bai Yu was still a genius from the Inner Institute of the Divine Academy. His combat strength was probably even more terrifying than ordinary 4th-stage immortal emperors. Hence, he was worried that Zhuowen might not be a match for Bai Yu. Don't worry, big brother Hantian. I have my own methods to deal with Bai Yu. Zhuowen smiled faintly. Lu Hantian nodded when he saw the confident smile on Zhuowen's face. He retreated to the back with the Lord of the Grand Demon and the others. They silently observed Zhuowen and Bai Yu, who were facing each other in the distance. No one has ever dared to say such presumptuous words in front of me. You're the first. Don't think that you're invincible, just because you're a demon emperor. I'll let you know that there's no such thing as an outsider in this world. Bai Yu flicked the middle finger of his right hand. A beam of light shot out from his spirit ring, forming a 3-meter-long halberd. The pressure that emanated from the surface of the halberd swept out like a whirlwind, causing many of the surrounding cultivators' expressions to change. A mid-tier emperor weapon? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and stared at the halberd in Bai Yu's hand. The emperor pressure that emanated from the halberd was truly terrifying, causing him to faintly tremble in fear. This pressure wasn't something that a low-tier emperor weapon could compare to. As expected of an inner court disciple, he actually used a mid-tier emperor weapon right off the bat. Many of the surrounding cultivators' eyes trembled slightly as they softly muttered to themselves. Senior brother, Bai Yu used the flowing feather halberd right off the bat. It seems that this demon Dao youth isn't simple to him. Not far behind, Lanju's eyes flickered as he spoke with some surprise. A pink-clothed woman standing beside Lanju revealed a cautious look in her beautiful eyes. She softly said, Didn't you notice that this Demon Dao youth is a third heaven demon emperor? Demon Dao cultivators are heaven-defying cultivators. Once they become demon emperors, their battle prowess far surpasses emperor realm cultivators of the same level. Generally speaking, a third heaven demon emperor's battle prowess surpasses a fourth heaven demon emperor's. Although senior brother Baiyu's battle prowess is extraordinary, he still needs to be cautious in front of a third heaven demon emperor. He's actually a third heaven demon emperor? Lan Zhu and the others narrowed their eyes. Their cultivation was below the third heaven demon emperor realm, so they couldn't sense the specific aura of Zhuowen's cultivation. However, the pink-clothed woman beside them was a genius whose cultivation was second only to Baiyu. She had reached the third heaven demon emperor realm, and her name was Jiang Ying. As a third heaven demon emperor, Jiang Ying could clearly sense how intense the pressure from Zhuowen's body was. Although both of them were third heaven demon emperors, the two words demon emperor carried a much higher weight. Take out your emperor weapon, otherwise, you might not have a chance. Baiyu took a step forward and gripped the halberd tightly with his 5 fingers. The crisp sound of bones rubbing against each other could be heard from his palm. The surface of the flowing feather halberd emitted a white light that resembled wings. It was as if the halberd had grown wings. It looked rather strange. I don't necessarily need to use my emperor weapon to deal with you, Zhuowen said indifferently. He clenched his right hand, and billowing great demonic battle chi gathered in his palm, turning into the great demonic halberd. Baiyu's face stiffened, and he said in a deep voice, "How arrogant. Soon, I will let you know the consequences of your arrogance." Boom! A ferocious glint flashed across Baiyu's eyes. Soon after, the flowing feather halberd in his hand shook violently, immediately emitting a sharp ear-piercing whistle. Immediately, the countless white light wings attached to the surface of the halberd suddenly shot out, transforming into a sky full of light that bombarded Zhuowen below. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He raised the great demonic halberd in his hand, and billowing demonic aura surged up like black clouds, forming a black waterfall. Boom boom boom. The flowing feather halberd collided with the black waterfall, emitting a dull sound. Soon, it was completely annihilated by the black waterfall. Swoosh! The moment the flowing feather halberd flew out, Baiyu's figure suddenly moved, and he closed in on Zhuowen like a ghost. He waved the halberd in his hand, and suddenly, dozens of halberd shadows burst out. Then, the dozens of halberd shadows fell on Zhuowen's vital parts. The power was like a storm, extremely terrifying. The halberd shadows that filled the sky rapidly enlarged in Zhuowen's eyes. Then he did not dare to be careless. He slashed out with the great demonic halberd in his right hand, and billowing demonic aura surged out, forming a huge halberd shadow in the sky. Ding ding dang dang. The crisp sound of metal clashing, accompanied by endless sparks, constantly resounded in the open space. Soon after, the countless halberd shadows collided with the huge halberd shadows. Soon after, the halberd shadows formed by Zhuowen's great demon halberd did not persist for long before they were all destroyed. Of course, the halberd shadows that Baiyu brandished were blocked by Zhuowen's great demonic halberd, and their power was greatly weakened. When they fell in front of Zhuowen, they were all dissolved by Zhuowen. Swoosh! After dissolving Baiyu's halberd shadows, Zhuowen took a step forward and shot out like a black lightning bolt. In an instant, he was in front of Baiyu, and the great demonic halberd in his hand slammed down from above. Demonic aura filled the sky, and its power was terrifying. Boom! Looking at the figure that was getting closer, Baiyu's pupils shrank. His right hand suddenly touched the flowing feather halberd, and the countless white light wings attached to the halberd stuck to Baiyu's body, forming a strange defense. Then, Baiyu's hands crossed, and the halberd was placed in front of him. With a dull sound, the halberd blocked the great demonic halberd. At the same time, the demonic aura on the surface of the great demonic halberd had a terrifying corrosive power, and it seeped into Baiyu's body. However, it was blocked by the white light wings around him. "Break!" Baiyu shouted coldly, and his hand stopped. Immediately, the flowing feather halberd in his hand emitted a blazing white light, and its power was many times more terrifying than before. Crack! Under this power, the great demonic halberd in Zhuowen's hand collapsed inch by inch. Zhuowen's pupil shrank. The moment the great demonic halberd shattered, he immediately retreated. However, Bai Yu's halberd was like a venomous snake, and at a tricky angle, it suddenly swept towards Zhuowen's chest in an attempt to pierce through him. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. With a clench of his hands, another two great demonic halberds appeared in front of him, and he wanted to block the flowing feather halberd that had not lost its power. It's useless, Luo Guangyu. Chapter 1238. Speed bang, bang, bang. The flowing feather halberd, which was wrapped in the wings, streaked across the sky like a meteor. The sharp whistling sound produced by the friction between the halberd and the air was ear-piercing. Zhuowen's pupils shrank under the impact of the flowing feather halberd. He waved the great demon halberd in his hands in an attempt to block the power of the flowing feather halberd. Unfortunately, the power of the flowing feather halberd was too terrifying. Every time his great demon halberd hit the surface of the flowing feather halberd, the terrifying flowing light would be annihilated. Zhuowen had no choice but to form another great demon halberd to block the powerful flowing feather halberd. Dang! Dang! At the same time, Zhuowen retreated again and again until he was dozens of meters away. Then he stomped his foot on the ground. Billowing demonic aura surged and turned into a huge demonic shadow in the void. The demonic shadow had a giant hand that was hundreds of feet long. It slammed down on the flowing feather halberd. Rumble! The power of the demonic shadow was extremely terrifying. It actually completely stopped the forward momentum of the flowing feather halberd. However, this pause only lasted for a moment. The flowing feather halberd actually let out a hum and directly destroyed the demonic shadow's giant hand. It directly pierced through the demonic shadow's palm and skewered it like a mutton skewer. A triple demon emperor is nothing special. Bai Yu took a step forward and came to the side of the flowing feather halberd in an instant. He stretched out his right hand and grabbed the flowing feather halberd. Then he twisted his right palm, and the flowing feather halberd burst out a blazing white light. It fell from the sky. Bai Yu followed the flowing feather halberd and fell, as if he was one with the halberd. What a terrifying attack! Looking at the falling light feather that Bai Yu used, many of the surrounding warriors narrowed their eyes and could not help but exclaim. They could imagine that if they were to face this move, they would probably be in grave danger. At this moment, everyone's gazes landed on Zhuowen. They wanted to know how the demonic youth would react to Bai Yu's attack. Or would he allow himself to be captured without a fight? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and flicked his finger. Suddenly, a black and red Buddhist commandment blade swept out from the spirit ring. A monstrous demonic power burst out from the Buddhist commandment blade, and a terrifying demonic wind emerged around Zhuowen. This is a demonic weapon. When the demonic slaughtering blade appeared in Zhuowen's hand, everyone was shocked. The demonic power that the demonic slaughtering blade exuded was extremely terrifying. Everyone could feel that this demonic weapon was definitely not ordinary. Life destruction. Zhuowen's indifferent voice reverberated in the area. Then, he slashed out with the slaughtering demon blade. Suddenly, a terrifying blade shadow fell from the sky like a huge and terrifying mountain. It smashed down and hit Bai Yu's Luoguang feather. Rumble! An explosion resounded. Soon after, the two terrifying energies were like compressed bombs that directly exploded. The entire empty ground resounded with terrifying vibrations. Numerous cracks even formed on the ground, making it look extremely ferocious and terrifying. The energy ripples spread out, causing many of the surrounding warriors' faces to change drastically. They quickly retreated. Just the energy ripples alone had such power. They could not imagine how terrifying the power at the center of the explosion was. Amidst the explosion, Zhuowen's surging demonic aura adhered to the surface of his body. It was just like the toughest armor, as it shuttled through the wild and violent energy like an agile fish. In an instant, it had descended onto Bai Yu, who was wrapped in the wings. At this moment, Bai Yu's eyes were filled with horror. He did not expect Zhuowen's demonic weapon to be so terrifying. What was even more surprising was that Zhuowen could move freely in the explosion. What kind of freak was that? Hand over the imperial power heart. Zhuowen said indifferently. Bai Yu's eyes were gloomy. He said coldly, "You are not weak. However, it will not be so easy for you to defeat me. Not handing it over? Then I will beat you until you hand it over." Zhuowen indifferently spat out these words. Soon after, the slaughtering demonic blade suddenly slashed at the wings. Immediately, a terrifying demonic power came crashing down like a mountain, causing the expression of Bai Yu, who was under the protection of the wings, to change drastically. Bang! The wings, which were curled up like a white ball, were blasted down by the blade like a rubber ball. They smashed heavily on the ground. Whoosh! 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 Everyone looked at the ball formed by the wings. They could see the figure in the white light. It was no stranger to them. It was Bai Yu. However, before anyone could react, Zhuowen had already arrived. He slashed out again, and the wing was sent flying again. Zhuowen teleported to the next location where the wing was sent flying, and the demonic slaughter blade in his hand slashed out again. This repeated a few times. The ball formed by the wings was like a rubber ball that kept flying around in the air. It was hit by Zhuowen continuously. Every time he hit, the direction of the whip would change. Bai Yu, who was within the wings, was in a miserable state. Just the rebounding force that was transmitted from the surface of the wings caused his blood to boil. With a cry, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was extremely pale. Moreover, Zhuowen seemed to be addicted to playing. He continued to whip the wings, causing the ball to fly around in the air. It could not fall down at all. "Bastard, let go of senior brother Bai Yu." The girl in pink, Jiang Ying, could not watch any longer. She cried out. Her foot pushed off the ground, and she rushed towards Zhuowen in an attempt to stop Zhuowen. With Jiang Ying leading the way, the 4D stage experts behind her, including Xie Yu, also rushed over. Bai Yu was their senior brother, and a famous genius of Sky Capital Peak. At this moment, he was being ravaged by an unfamiliar demonic youth. It was extremely humiliating for them. The eyes of the Grand Demon Lord and Lu Hantian, who were originally watching, flickered. They suddenly rushed forward and intercepted Jiang Ying's group. "You dare to stop me?" Jiang Ying cried out. With a wave of her hand, she immediately drew a soft whip from her waist. Countless whip shadows danced like snakes as they suddenly rushed forward, enveloping the Grand Demon Lord and Lu Hantian. The Grand Devil Master slowly extended a shriveled hand, after which he gently clenched his hand. Surging Grand Devil Battle Chi rushed out, and turned into a huge devil palm. This devil palm descended from the sky. Immediately, the countless whip shadows collapsed an inch at a time. Jiang Ying let out a muffled groan, and took a couple of steps back. Her pretty eyes were filled with shock. "You're also a third-level demon emperor?" Jiang Ying could not help but cry out. As soon as these words came out, many people around were shocked. The demonic youth was a third heaven demon emperor, which was already shocking enough. The stooped old man in front of them was also a third heaven demon emperor. Two demon emperor powerhouses appearing at the same time was absolutely a terrifying thing. "I advise you not to act recklessly, or I might not be able to stop myself and end up killing you," sneered the Grand Demon Lord. The hearts of Jiang Ying and the others immediately chilled when they heard that. The young man from the demonic path had already demonstrated how terrifying a third-level demon emperor was. They knew that even if they worked together, they would probably not be a match for the old man. Jiang Ying in particular had discovered that the Grand Demon Lord's strength was probably even more terrifying than the young man from the demonic path, so her delicate figure trembled slightly. She actually dared not act rashly. "Bastard! You forced me to do this." Finally, a furious roar rang out in the sky. The winged sphere that Zhuowen had sent flying suddenly unfurled, revealing Bai Yu. Bai Yu was not in a very good state right now. He clutched his chest with his right hand as he panted heavily. Blood leaked from the corner of his mouth as he coughed violently. However, his eyes were extremely red as he glared at Zhuowen. Boom! Bai Yu extended his right hand towards his forehead. Immediately, a terrifying white light surged out from his back. The white light rapidly expanded and turned into a huge pair of wings. "Kill!" Bai Yu roared out as the wings on his back opened and closed. His speed skyrocketed, and he turned into a gust of wind before everyone, directly disappearing from where he was. So fast. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. The wings on Baiyu's back were probably his armor soul. They could actually increase his speed so terrifyingly. Even Zhuowen was secretly surprised. Swoosh. When Zhuowen returned to his senses, there was a whistling sound behind him. Afterwards, a halberd shot towards Zhuowen's back with lightning-like speed, as if it wanted to pierce through him. Block. With a twist of his waist, Zhuowen immediately dodged the fatal blow of the halberd. The tip of the halberd just so happened to sweep past his waist, and actually tore apart the robe around his waist. He knew that if he had been a step slower, that halberd would have really pierced through his chest. Your reaction is quite fast. A soft sound rang out. Then, Zhuowen realized that the halberd at his waist was actually whistling through the air, as if it wanted to cut him in half. Zhuowen snorted coldly. He swept the demonic slaughtering blade horizontally and blocked the halberd that was coming towards his waist. Then he groaned and took a few steps back. He lifted his head and looked at Baiyu, who had spread his wings and a ferocious look in his eyes. The reason why I'm called Baiyu is because my armor soul is also called Baiyu. With it, I have unparalleled speed. Even a 5th-level emperor would find it difficult to catch up with me, let alone you. Baiyu laughed coldly. Is that so? Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He formed a seal with his hands and immediately, 3 pairs of lightning wings appeared on his back. Let's compete in speed. Having said that, Zhuowen took a step forward. His entire body was like an ethereal bolt of lightning as he shot towards Baiyu. Baiyu obviously did not expect Zhuowen to have wings as well. Moreover, they were lightning wings. Hence, when Zhuowen shot towards him, he could not help but fall into a daze. However, when he came back to his senses, he roared and quickly retreated. However, it was all too late. Chaotic mortal world. Chapter 1239. Frantically collecting when Baiyu regained his senses, Zhuowen's slaughtering demonic blade had already arrived and swept towards his back. Thereafter, he felt a sharp pain on his back as the winged armor soul was chopped off by Zhuowen. It turned into countless rays of white light and dissipated in the void. Puffed. With his wings chopped off, Baiyu wasn't feeling well either. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face was extremely pale. Retreat! Baiyu let out a low roar and was about to retreat. However, Zhuowen's movements were much faster than his. The moment Baiyu retreated, Zhuowen suddenly stretched out his empty left arm and grabbed Baiyu's neck. Bastard! Baiyu cursed as the flowing feather halberd in his right hand suddenly stopped and swept towards Zhuowen. However, Zhuowen's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He raised the slaughtering demonic blade and blocked the flowing feather halberd that was flying towards him. If you dare to act rashly again, I'll kill you. Seeing that Baiyu still wanted to act recklessly, Zhuowen's eyes were extremely cold with dense killing intent. That killing intent instantly caused Baiyu's face to turn stiff, and he didn't dare to act recklessly. He was really afraid that Zhuowen would kill him without any mercy. Wouldn't that be an unjust death for him? I'm an official disciple of the Divine Academy's Inner Courtyard Sky Capital Peak. Do you dare to kill me? Baiyu said with some unwillingness. Zhuowen lifted him up with a single hand and said indifferently, You can try if I dare. At this moment, the surrounding atmosphere was extremely quiet as everyone stared at Baiyu, who was being lifted up by Zhuowen like a little chick, and kept quiet out of fear. This demonic youth was too terrifying. Even an inner courtyard genius like Baiyu had been defeated by him. Furthermore, he had even held her in his hand in such a humiliating manner. This was an extremely shocking matter for everyone present. As they looked at Zhuowen, their eyes were filled with awe and respect. Baiyu's eyes flickered as he finally gave in. He didn't dare to gamble with his life. After all, he only had one life. How could he dare to take it as a joke? Hand over the Imperial Power Heart, Zhuowen said calmly. I can give you the heart of the Imperial Power, but you have to guarantee my safety, White Feather said through gritted teeth. Zhuowen nodded and said, Don't worry, I have no interest in killing you. Hand it over. Indeed, Zhuowen had never thought of killing Baiyu. After all, he was a genius of Sky Capital Peak, and should have a mark left behind by Elder Wuxia on his body. If he killed Baiyu, he would probably anger Elder Wuxia. At that time, it would be difficult to resolve the situation. After all, Elder Wuxia's strength was unfathomable, and much more terrifying than Baiyu's. Baiyu gently exhaled upon hearing these words. She took out the heart of imperial power from her spirit ring, and directly tossed it to Zhuowen. After which she said, "Can you release me now?" After receiving the imperial heart, Zhuowen carefully examined it before storing it into his spirit ring. At the same time, he released his right hand that was strangling Baiyu. Cough cough. White Feather drew back dozens of steps. He coughed several times, warily staring at Zhuowen. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, the 5 people led by Jiang Ying also came to White Feather's side. Jiang Ying's beautiful eyes were filled with worry as she asked, "Senior brother White Feather, are you all right?" White Feather shook his head and looked at Zhuowen in front of him with a gloomy gaze. She coldly asked, "Who are you? You seem to be a genius of the Demon Emperor. Could it be that you are from the desolate Nether Realm's deserted island?" Desolate Nether Realm's deserted island? Zhuowen inwardly muttered to himself. Looking at White Feather's meaning, the desolate Nether Realm's deserted island should be a force of demon cultivators. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to associate him with the desolate Nether Realm's deserted island because of his identity as a demon emperor. Speaking of which, Zhuowen really didn't know much about the 9 Nether Realm. It seemed that he had to go to the 9 Nether Realm as soon as possible. Moreover, Mu Qinshua's cold poison only had 7 months left, so there wasn't much time left for him. So what if I do, and so what if I don't? After Zhuowen said such ambiguous words, he bid farewell to Lu Hantian and Tai Mo Lord. Then, under everyone's gazes, the group directly left this place. Now, Zhuowen had a great need for the heart of imperial power, so he naturally couldn't waste too much time here. In addition, this land was extremely vast, so there were probably a lot of hearts of imperial power. Not only did he need to obtain the heart of imperial power for Lve Tao, Luo Xing, and Qing Lian, but his own body also had an extremely great need for the heart of imperial power. Big Brother Hantian, there must be a lot of buildings similar to temples in this land. If we search together, the efficiency will be very low. Zhuowen suddenly said, "Do you mean that we should search separately?" Lu Hantian asked in surprise. Zhuowen nodded and said, "Brother Lu, Qing Lian, and Luo Xing all need hearts of imperial power. My main body probably needs quite a few as well, so I don't know when we'll be able to find them if we search like this. So it's best if we split up and search for them." Master is right. His original body seems to require an extremely great amount of star energy because of his dragon soul. A single heart of imperial power isn't enough for Master to reach the Emperor realm. So the more hearts of imperial power there are, the better, said Tai Mo Lord. During the 10 years in the Pang Great World, the Tai Mo Lord had spent time with Zhuowen. Coupled with the fact that he was Zhuowen's servant, he knew a few things about Zhuowen. In particular, he had a deep impression of the strange dragon soul in Zhuowen's body. Since that's the case, let's split up. Li Tao, Luo Xing, and Qing Lian. Lu Hantian nodded. The 3 of them discussed for a while more before leaving behind their own imprints. Soon after, they shot off in all directions, searching for the heart of imperial power. On Baiyu's side, not long after Zhuowen and the others left, another 3 figures shot over from the horizon and landed there. Among these 3 people, the leader was a middle-aged man in a purple robe. He had long purple hair, and his eyes were a strange purple color. 2 old men stood respectfully on both sides of him. One old man had a kind face, while the other old man had a rather gloomy gaze. Greetings to Master Mu Feng, Dean, and Elder Wuxia. Baiyu and the others cupped their hands respectfully to the 3 people in front of them. The old man with the gloomy gaze took a step forward and arrived in front of Baiyu and the others. Looking at Baiyu's weak aura, he frowned slightly and asked, "What's going on?" Baiyu and the others looked at each other with a wry smile on their faces. They then recounted what had just happened in full detail. 2 third-level demon emperors? Elder Wuxia frowned slightly and muttered to himself in confusion. "Elder, Do you think they are geniuses from the deserted island of the desolate Nether Realm? Bai Yu asked with some apprehension. Elder Huaxia narrowed his eyes and shook his head. The Bitter Sea is some distance away from the Ninth Nether Realm, and the desolate Nether Realm is extremely remote. It's unlikely that those demon cultivators from the deserted island would come all the way to the Emperor's tomb to search for treasures. Then which force do they belong to? Bai Yu asked with some confusion. Elder Huaxia shook his head slightly and said, I'm not sure. Since the heart of imperial power has been lost, it's not very useful to you. There's no need to force it. If you can obtain the inheritance of a powerful Emperor Realm warrior in the Emperor's tomb, or obtain a mid-grade or even high-grade Emperor artifact, that's something worth celebrating. Of course, if we can meet the demon cultivators you mentioned on the way, it's not impossible to seize the heart of imperial power from them. Have you seen Zhuowen? Suddenly, Master Mufeng arrived behind Elder Huaxia and asked in an absent-minded manner. Bai Yu and the other 5 looked at each other and shook their heads. When they entered, they had chosen a different path from Zhuowen. It was normal for them to not meet him. Master Mufeng's eyes narrowed when he heard this, revealing a rare trace of disappointment. Of course, this expression was quickly concealed by him. He looked into the distance and looked at the huge gully in the middle of the ground. He said in an indifferent manner, the core region of the Emperor's tomb should be within that gully. There should be many Emperor Realm warriors who have died there. Let's go there first. When they heard Master Mufeng's words, the gazes of many surrounding warriors fell on the huge gully in the middle. Their eyes were filled with a fiery passion. Let's go. Before Grandmaster Mufeng could continue speaking, many of the surrounding warriors became restless. After which, they rushed out like a swarm of locusts and rushed towards the huge gully. Master, let's go. Elder Huaxia's expression was a little ugly when he saw those figures scrambling to leave. He knew that if they were late, all the good things would be snatched by others. Master Mufeng smiled faintly and said, although I have guessed that the gully is the core region of the Emperor's tomb, it is only my guess. I have never entered it. Who knows if there is any danger around the gully? Therefore, before we enter, someone must test it. The expressions of Elder Huaxia and the rest became dull when these words were uttered. They finally understood why Grandmaster Mufeng would utter such words in public. Although it appeared as though Grandmaster Mufeng had casually uttered these words, the latter had actually been brewing for a long time. Even Elder Huaxia and the headmaster felt a chill when they saw his scheming nature. Let's follow behind those people and observe the situation. Master Mufeng did not care about the strange expressions on the faces of Elder Huaxia, the headmaster, and the rest. With a soft laugh, he took the lead and rushed towards the gully. The headmaster, Elder Huaxia, and the rest looked at each other and followed closely behind. While many people were rushing to the central ravine, Zhuowen's 3 clones were busy searching for the heart of imperial power in this land. Needless to say, he really did find several similar temple buildings. Naturally, there were other warriors in the temple buildings. However, with Zhuowen's cultivation and strength, ordinary imperial power realm warriors could not do anything to him, let alone those warriors at the peak of the celestial venerable realm. Chapter 1240. Night wandering Levine. Just 6 hours, he had collected 10 hearts of imperial power. This was a great harvest for Zhuowen. Through the communication jade charm, the Lord of Grand Demon seemed to have collected 3 hearts of imperial power. However, Lu Hantian was unlucky. The 4 of them had only collected 2 hearts of imperial power. Lve Tao, Qing Lian, and Luo Xing all needed hearts of imperial power. Hence, Zhuowen planned to give them 1 heart of imperial power. After all, it would not be easy for him to break through to the imperial power realm. Furthermore, it would take a lot of time. He was not in a hurry. Let's gather the Buddha and Demon Dao doppelganger first. Zhuowen stood quietly in the void. His eyes were shining. Just as he was about to gather the 2 doppelgangers, his gaze fell on a group of buildings below. There was also a group of warriors gathered in the group of buildings. There was a similar temple in the middle of the group. The reason why Zhuowen's attention was attracted to the similar temple was because there were several figures standing opposite each other, in the open space outside the temple. These figures were faintly divided into two factions. One of the factions was led by a beautiful lady with a graceful figure and a zither in her hand. Behind her, there were 4 figures, 2 men and 2 women. The beautiful lady with the zither stared coldly at the group of people in front of her. Or rather, it would be more accurate to say that there was a young man with green eyes at the head of the group of people in front of her. I did not expect that night-wandering love from the Night Monster Island would arrive. Although Moyan Wuxiang is the granddaughter of Mo Yen by Yen, he is not by her side. I'm afraid that night-wandering love will act recklessly. If Moyan Wuxiang is tactful enough to hand over the heart of imperial power, perhaps night-wandering love will not do anything to him on account of his identity. If she doesn't hand it over, it's hard to imagine what she'll do with her personality. Many martial artists looked at the young man with bewitching eyes, their eyes filled with fear. Yi Yuqing was very famous in the Bitter Sea. Not only was he the son of a demon emperor, Yi Wuxin, but his talent was also extremely terrifying. He was already a first-level demon emperor, and had once killed a second-level demon emperor. He was famous for his ferocity. Yi Yuqing wasn't very famous before he ascended. He was even weaker than Xie Yu and Yama Crown Prince on Azura Island. However, with Yi Wuxin's help, his battle prowess became even more terrifying. He even killed a second-layer Great Emperor to establish his prestige. Moreover, after advancing to the Demon Emperor realm, Nocturnal Love's behavior had also become unscrupulous. No matter what your identity was, he would dare to kill you. Therefore, this guy's ferocious reputation in the Misery Sea was extremely great. Miss Moyan, my patience is very limited. It wasn't easy for me to find this temple, but you beat me to it and seized the heart of imperial power. Don't you think you should return it to me? Yi Yuqing said with an evil and cold aura. Yi Yuqing, you bastard. Do you have any shame? Obviously, this heart of the imperial power was obtained by us with great effort. You want us to hand it over? How can it be so easy? Moyan Wuxiang said coldly. Yi Yuqing's smile became even more brilliant. You don't want to hand it over? I have plenty of ways to make you hand it over. After saying that, Yi Yuqing ordered more than 10 of his subordinates behind him. You guys capture the 4 people behind Moyan Wuxiang. I'll teach Miss Mo Yen a lesson. Hehe. The subordinates behind Yi Yuqing nodded and rushed out. They surrounded Qingyin, Jianan Gatha, and Mo Lingtian behind Moyan Wuxiang. It had to be said that these subordinates of the Night Demon Island were not mediocre. Each of them had the strength of a peak heavenly master. Despicable! Moyan Wuxiang shouted. Her jade-like hand suddenly pulled on the zither. The sound of the zither spread out like a monstrous tsunami. The sound of the zither contained a terrifying murderous intent, causing the whole area to be filled with murderous intent. The nearby warriors' faces changed. Under the influence of the murderous sound, they were forced to retreat. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. The moment Moyan Wuxiang plucked the zither, Qingyin, who was surrounded, also used her armor soul. Her armor soul was a zither. Her slender jade-like hand suddenly plucked the strings of the zither. The murderous sound burst out and merged with Moyan Wuxiang's sound wave. Suddenly, the power of the sound wave increased by 1,000 times. The murderous sound spread out in the form of a ring. It affected more than 10 warriors of the Night Demon Island, causing their pupils to shrink. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and were sent flying. They heavily smashed into the ground more than 10 meters away. The dull sound of their bodies falling to the ground echoed in everyone's heart like an echo. So strong! Looking at more than 10 warriors of the Night Demon Island, who were repelled in an instant, many warriors in the surroundings exclaimed in a low voice. Qingyin and Moyan Wuxiang were monstrous geniuses of the excellent God Academy. Although their cultivation was at the peak heavenly master realm, their battle strength was close to the first-level emperor realm. It was naturally easy for them to repel more than 10 ordinary peak heavenly masters of the Night Demon Island. Yi Yuqing licked his lips and said with a smile, worthy of being called the geniuses of the excellent God Island. However, I wonder if you can still be so insufferably strong when facing me. As he spoke, Yi Yuqing took a step forward and flew out like a rock spreading its wings. His right hand clenched in the air, and a snake-shaped spear that was emitting green light appeared in his palm. Surrounding the snake-shaped spear was a green python. Its ferocious tongue was sticking out, and it looked extremely terrifying. "Qingyin, help me." Moyan Wuxiang's beautiful eyes were filled with a dignified expression. He instructed Qingyin, who was behind him. Her slender jade-like hand stretched out and plucked the zither strings on the surface. The sound of killing gushed out. Qingyin did not dare to be negligent. She held the zither in her hand and plucked it out. The two sounds of killing converged together and formed a sound wave dragon. It whistled towards Yi Yuqing in the sky. Yi Yuqing was awe-inspiring and fearless. The snake-shaped spear in his hand stopped. His waist twisted, and his whole body spun like a hurricane. At the tip of the snake-shaped spear, an extremely fierce green light gushed out. The green light burst out and turned into a green python, rushing towards the sound wave dragon below. Boom! As the serpents and dragons intertwined, an extremely tragic sound of collision immediately erupted. It was like a deafening explosion. The two serpents and dragons' huge bodies continued to fight in the air, causing invisible energy ripples to spread out in the air. Break! Yi Yuqing descended from the sky. The snake-shaped spear smashed down fiercely. A terrifying force filled the air, causing invisible ripples to appear in the space. Suddenly, the sound wave dragon let out a sorrowful cry and shattered into pieces. Puff! The sound wave dragon was broken. Moyan Wuxiang and Qingyin spurted out a mouthful of blood and retreated. Their eyes were filled with fear. Yi Yuqing was indeed a first-level demon emperor. His fighting strength was so terrifying that he could easily break their joint attack. Yi Yuqing's momentum did not decrease. He held the snake-shaped spear and shot out again. His target was Moyan Wuxiang. After all, the imperial heart was in Moyan Wuxiang's hands. Looking at Yi Yuqing, Moyan Wuxiang's beautiful eyes slightly changed. She wanted to dodge. Unfortunately, Yi Yuqing's attack had caused her to suffer a serious internal injury. At this moment, her reaction was much slower than before. In an instant, Yi Yuqing was in front of her. "Sister Wuxiang, dodge!" A slightly childish voice rang out. Then, Jianan came out of nowhere and crashed into Moyan Wuxiang's body. Moyan Wuxiang's body could not help but fall to one side, just in time to dodge Yi Yuqing's attack. Yi Yuqing stared coldly at Jianan, who was causing trouble in front of him. He said coldly, "You are courting death." After saying that, Yi Yuqing threw the snake-shaped spear in his hand and mercilessly hit Jianan's body. With his strength as a first-level demon emperor, this attack was completely capable of killing this brat, who was only at the peak of the Golden Venerable Realm. Boom! Sure enough, Jianan was sent flying by Yi Yuqing's attack without exception. He spat out a mouthful of blood and heavily smashed into the ground not far away. However, Yi Yuqing was puzzled by the fact that Jianan actually didn't die. Instead, he struggled on the ground for a moment before actually jumping up. Is this brat a freak? His cultivation is at the peak of the Golden Venerable Realm. Under Yi Yuqing's attack, he actually did not die. Many warriors in the surroundings looked at Jianan, who was struggling to get up, as if they were looking at a freak. At the same time, whispers could be heard from the surroundings. Yi Yuqing was also a little surprised, especially when he heard the discussions of the surrounding people. He suddenly felt a little embarrassed. He coldly snorted, stepped out, and suddenly rushed out. He gave up on Mo Yin of Wuxiang and rushed towards Canaan again. To think that he, a demon emperor, could not kill a peak of the Golden Venerable Realm warrior. This was really damaging to his reputation as a demon emperor. Brother! Looking at Yi Yuqing rushing towards Jianan again, Gatha, who was not far away, had a slight change in her expression. Although she knew that Jianan had the undying armor soul and had an extremely strong recovery ability, it did not mean that he could not die. If Jianan was hit by a terrifying attack, his undying armor soul would be useless. At that time, he would really die. Without any hesitation, Gatha immediately used the Heaven's Wrath armor soul. A terrifying snowstorm surged out, and a hazy tall figure appeared in the snowstorm. If one looked carefully, one could see that the figure's hands and feet were tied with chains. It looked extremely strange. As soon as the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul appeared, it rushed out under Gatha's instructions and blocked in front of Jianan. Get lost! Chapter 1241. Demonic Transformation. What kind of armor soul is this? Yi Youqing's eyes shrunk to the size of needles. He stared intently at the partially visible figure in the snowstorm. The Heaven's Wrath Armor Spirit actually gave him a sense of danger. Although it was only a little, it was enough to cause him to be stunned. After all, the owner of the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul, Gatha, was only a heavenly sovereign. It was extremely rare for a heavenly sovereign to give him such a sense of danger. Clang! The sound of chains dancing could be heard as the figure in the snowstorm threw out a punch. Countless black chains swept out like pythons. In the middle of the black chains was a huge iron fist. Boom! When the punch landed on Yi Youqing's snake-shaped spear, the sound of metal clashing could be heard. Then, Yi Youqing's pupils shrank as she retreated. Her hands, which were holding the snake-shaped spear, felt a faint numbness. With a punch, Xuebao's figure took a step forward. His fists were like a rainstorm, continuously pouring down on Yi Youqing. His fists were like raindrops falling on Yi Youqing's body, causing Yi Youqing to retreat step by step. He seemed to be exhausted from running for his life. An uproar spread out in the surroundings. Everyone looked at the scene in shock. No one had expected that Yi Youqing, a first-level demon emperor, would be suppressed. It was truly inconceivable. Moyan Wuxiang and Qingyin looked at the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul with their eyes bulging. They were stunned. Previously, Zhuowen had asked them to take care of Jianan and Gatha, and they had done it. However, the two of them did not expect Jianan and Gatha to be so extraordinary. Putting aside the fact that Jianan had survived Yi Youqing's attack, just the fact that Gatha had released this strange armor soul was enough to suppress Yi Youqing, was enough to shock the two of them. So strong. Moyan Wuxiang and Soft Note looked at each other and smiled bitterly. It was one thing for Zhuowen to be a freak, but to think that Kanan and Jasha, whom he had asked them to take care of, were also freaks. The two girls didn't know what to say. Is this the power of the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul? Above the clouds, Zhuowen quietly looked down at the battle below, especially when he saw Yi Youqing being suppressed by the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul. His eyes were filled with shock. The Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul is an armor soul that is envied by the heavens. Its power is naturally extraordinary. Now Gatha's cultivation is only at the heavenly venerable realm. If she can reach the sovereign realm, the power of her Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul will become even more terrifying. A first-level Great Emperor will have no problem fighting a middle-level Great Emperor. Xiao Hei's voice slowly rang in Zhuowen's mind. Xiao Hei's evaluation was not low. A first-level Great Emperor could fight a middle-level Great Emperor. This was definitely a peerless genius. Even if Zhuowen's demon doppelganger reached the first-level Great Emperor, he would not be able to fight a middle-level Great Emperor. Boy, don't be surprised. If your body successfully reaches the Emperor realm, in addition to the dragon skill that I have given you, your battle strength will definitely be more terrifying than Gatha's. Xiao Hei laughed. Can you fight against a high-level Great Emperor? Zhuowen asked out of the blue. Xiao Hei's voice was silent for a while. Then he slowly said, Can fight a 7th-level Great Emperor? Hiss. Zhuowen could not help but gasp. A first-level Great Emperor could fight a 7th-level Great Emperor. Wasn't this too crazy? What kind of existence was Xiao Hei? How could he increase his battle strength so much? Of course, when he thought about how difficult it was for his body to advance, Zhuowen understood. As the saying goes, good preparation leads to good results. Zhuowen's body had been accumulating in the panicked Great World for 10 years, and still could not advance to the sovereign realm. It was obvious that once he succeeded, his body's battle strength would be extremely terrifying. Yi Youqing has not used his full strength yet. After all, this guy is a first-level Great Emperor. When he uses his full strength later, Gatha's Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul will probably be defeated. Xiao Hei suddenly said. Hearing this, Zhuowen's gaze returned to the battle below. He saw that the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul was suppressing Yi Youqing to the point that he could not fight back. You've succeeded in infuriating me. Yi Youqing roared angrily. The snake-shaped spear in his right hand suddenly flicked and neutralized the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul's attack. At the same time, he retreated dozens of steps and stared ferociously at the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul in front of him and Gatha, who was behind it. A strong killing intent burst out from his body. Demon change. Yi Yuqing formed a seal with both of his hands. Immediately, a sharp hissing sound was emitted from his body. Immediately, traces of green snake scales appeared on his cheeks and hands. Both of his eyes also surged with endless green light. Roar! The green light shot into the sky and turned into a huge green snake shadow. Then, Yi Yuqing took a step forward and stood on the head of the green snake. His eyes were filled with green light, and he stared at the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul. Green snake. Kill it. Yi Yuqing stabbed the snake-shaped spear in his hand into the head of the green snake. Immediately, the huge green snake hissed, and its eyes turned green. Then, its huge body burst out and rushed towards the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul. Boom! 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 The Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul was expressionless. It raised both of its hands and countless black chains surged out. They turned into a chain whirlwind and surrounded the green snake that was rushing over. Then the chains shrunk and tied the snake up. Break! Yi Yuqing was expressionless as he spat out these words. Immediately, the green snake twisted its huge body, and the chains on its body collapsed. It continued to fall without losing any momentum. Boom! The huge snake head was like 100,000 feet tall mountain. It smashed heavily on the body of the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul. However, the latter was not afraid. It pushed both of its hands forward and blocked the snake head in front of its hands. Then it retreated dozens of steps under the huge force. Can you block it? Yi Yuqing's gaze was incomparably cold. Facing a heavenly venerable martial artist, Yi Yuqing was actually forced to use his armor soul. This was an absolute humiliation to him. So he wanted to crush this heavenly scourge armor soul and annihilate it. As he spoke, Yi Yuqing stepped on the snake head and pulled out the snake-shaped spear. His entire body spun like a top and he dropped down. The spear in his hand turned into a green light and instantly pierced through the chest of the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul. The Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul was being suppressed by the green snake. Although it noticed the snake-shaped spear that was rushing towards it, it did not have any extra energy to block it. No! Gatha shouted. Her beautiful eyes were filled with panic. Ever since the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul had awakened, it had not said a word. However, it had been silently protecting her. Gatha had already developed a strong dependence on it. Now that Yi Yuqing's attack was coming, Gatha actually rushed out without any regard for her own safety. She wanted to block in front of the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul. Roar! When Gatha arrived in front of the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul, the emotionless figure in the snowstorm revealed a blazing light in its eyes. With a loud roar, the green snake actually retreated. Unfortunately, the snake-shaped spear was too fast. Even if the Heaven's Wrath Armor Soul suddenly unleashed an even stronger power than before, it was simply too late. In the past, it was always you who protected me. Now it's my turn to protect you. Gatha turned around. Her beautiful eyes suddenly looked at the figure in the snowstorm behind her. A sweet smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She looked through the gaps in the snowstorm and saw the eyes of the figure in the snowstorm. At that moment, a trace of tears appeared in those eyes. Girl, you're too impulsive. A soft sigh was heard. When the snake-shaped spear was about to descend in front of Gatha, a large halberd with blood-red light shot out and blocked the snake-shaped spear at the critical moment. Ding! The large halberd and the spear collided. The sound of metal clashing was accompanied by dazzling sparks that reverberated in the entire open space. After that, the snake-shaped spear flew out and was caught in Yi Yuqing's hand. As for the large blood-red halberd, it was inserted into the ground in front of Gatha. It was like a blood-red tombstone that stood there quietly. Who is it? After retrieving the snake-shaped spear, Yi Yuqing's pupils shrank. He couldn't help but shout. His eyes were filled with fear. To be able to block his attack so easily, the owner of the large blood-red halberd definitely wasn't simple. After hearing Yi Yuqing's shout, the surrounding warriors also reacted. Their gazes first fell on the large blood-red halberd. Then, They looked around to find out who the owner of the large blood-red halberd was. Zhuowen. Moyan Wuxiang and Qingyin looked at the large blood-red halberd. Their beautiful eyes couldn't help but burst out with radiance as they muttered in a low voice. Big brother Zhuowen. Jianan and Gatha also recognized the large blood-red halberd. Wasn't it the emperor weapon, Azura battle halberd, that Zhuowen used to challenge Evil Moon and Lan Ju when he was in the academy? Whoosh! A piercing sound rang out. Immediately, above the clouds, a young man who was as tall as a mountain suddenly fell. When he was about to land, his feet gently tapped on the air and firmly landed on the end of the Azura war halberd. He looked down at Yi Yuqing in front of him from above. Peak Heavenly Sovereign? Who are you? Looking at the young man who suddenly appeared in front of him, Yi Yuqing was startled at first. Then he blurted out. Although the aura of the young man in front of him was only at the Peak Heavenly Sovereign, he knew that the young man was definitely not simple from the fact that he could rely on the Azura battle halberd to send his snake-shaped spear flying. Zhuowen of the Excellent Gods Academy? Zhuowen said indifferently. You are Zhuowen? Hearing this, Yi Yuqing couldn't help but be startled. He narrowed his eyes. He had also heard of the rumors about Zhuowen. It was said that he was only at the Peak Heavenly Sovereign, but he had consecutively challenged Di Ba, who was ranked second on the Outer Court Heavenly Sovereign list, and Evil Moon, who was ranked first. Chapter 1242. Yi Yuqing's gaze became a little cautious as he recalled the various rumors about Zhuowen. He didn't underestimate Zhuowen because his cultivation was only at the Peak Heavenly Master realm. I didn't expect you to be Zhuowen. I heard that you defeated the genius of the inner courtyard Lan Ju. Although Lan Ju's strength is not bad, there is still a gap between him and me. Therefore, I advise you to let Moyan Wuxiang hand over the heart of imperial power. I can completely forget about what happened before. I am doing this for your sake, Yi Yuqing said lightly. Although he was quite afraid of Zhuowen, he wouldn't show weakness because of this. After all, he was a first-level demon emperor. In terms of strength, he was even stronger than Lan Ju. Although Zhuowen could defeat Lan Ju, it didn't mean that he could defeat him. Therefore, he made such a suggestion. How many hearts of imperial power do you have? Zhuowen suddenly asked. Yi Yuqing had been in this land for 3 days. Generally speaking, with his cultivation, he should have explored the endless ravine in the center of the land. However, he was the same as Zhuowen and stayed for 3 days. Zhuowen didn't believe that Yi Yuqing had only found this temple in these 3 days. Yi Yuqing's pupil shrank. He was quite surprised that Zhuowen could guess that he had other hearts of imperial power. After pondering for a moment, Yi Yuqing said indifferently, I have 5 hearts of imperial power. Why are you asking this? Don't tell me you want to rob me? Yi Yuqing laughed as he said this. Although Zhuowen's combat strength was indeed good, there was still a gap between them. Therefore, he wasn't too worried that Zhuowen had the strength to rob him of the heart of imperial power. The surrounding warriors were all moved. They didn't expect Yi Yuqing to have 5 hearts of imperial power. Many people cursed Yi Yuqing in their hearts. He was really greedy, but they couldn't show it. After all, Yi Yuqing was a demon emperor, and the son of the demon emperor Yi Wuxin. They couldn't afford to offend him. You are right. I do plan to rob you of the 5 hearts of imperial power. Zhuowen nodded seriously. As soon as Zhuowen said this, the smile on Yi Yuqing's face immediately stiffened. The surrounding cultivators also rolled their dead fish eyes. The atmosphere suddenly became silent. This Zhuowen really dared to boast. He actually dared to say that he would snatch Yi Yuqing's heart of imperial power in front of him. Yi Yuqing's smile faded, and his voice became extremely cold. Yes. Zhuowen spat out this word. His entire body moved like lightning. His right hand pulled out the Azura war halberd from under his feet. Immediately, he stepped into the void, and his entire body shot to the extreme. In an instant, he was in front of Yi Yuqing. Yi Yuqing's gaze was extremely cold. He had already given Zhuowen enough face. However, this Zhuowen didn't give him any face at all. Thus, he couldn't blame him for being ruthless. Ha! Yi Yuqing shouted loudly. and the huge green snake below him roared towards the sky. The huge snake head swooped down, rushing towards Zhuo. It opened its bloody mouth, and a fishy smell spread out, causing many warriors in the surroundings to frown. Zhuo stood proudly with the Azura war halberd in his hand. His left hand had taken out a black round stone. This round stone was the immortal stone he had obtained from the Azura Island auction. Because the array in the immortal stone was incomplete, it could only be used once a day. Later, when Zhuo was in the panicked Great World, because he had dispelled the fallen demon powder, it had triggered the self-repair of the array in the immortal stone. Now it could be used 10 times a day, and its power was much stronger than before. The mental strength in Zhuo's Naiwan Palace, and the yuan power in his dantian suddenly gushed out, and drilled into the immortal stone. The two different energies combined under the immortal stone's array, to form an extremely terrifying immortal power. Waves of immortal power poured into the Azura war halberd, causing the surface of the Azura war halberd to be filled with a blazing white light. Then, Zhuo's legs suddenly bounced, and his entire body rushed out like a vigorous monkey. The moment he was in front of the green snake's head, the Azura war halberd slashed out horizontally. The move was very simple, and it was not fancy at all. However, the next moment, the scene that appeared shocked all the surrounding warriors. The moment the green snake's head came into contact with the Azura war halberd, it shattered into pieces and turned into a headless snake. Yi Yuqing, who was originally standing on the snake's head, narrowed his eyes and retreated dozens of steps, his heart thumping wildly. The green snake was the manifestation of his armor soul. The moment it came into contact with Zhuo, its head was cut off. This was too unbelievable. Whoosh! The moment the green snake was cut off, Zhuo stepped on the void and rushed out again, directly toward Yi Yuqing, who was retreating. This guy! Yi Yuqing shouted in a low voice, and the snake-shaped spear swept out. The blazing green light spread around his body, as if there was an endless green bamboo forest around him. Break! Zhuo spat out this word calmly, and then instantly brushed past Yi Yuqing's shoulder. The celestial power in his body was injected into the Azura war halberd, causing the Azura war halberd to burst out with an unprecedented light. Then, the surrounding people were shocked to find that the green light around Yi Yuqing's body was instantly destroyed. A muffled groan came from the void, and then everyone saw an extremely miserable figure falling from the void, heavily smashing onto the ground, causing a lot of dust to rise. Whoosh! 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 Everyone's gaze converged, and then they saw that the miserable figure was the demon emperor, Yi Yuqing. At this moment, Yi Yuqing's condition was not very good. His face was pale and weak, and blood was flowing out from the corner of his mouth. Although his body was generally much stronger after the demon transformation, he could not withstand the terrifying power of the celestial power. Celestial power was a powerful energy that was superior to origin energy and mental energy. The celestial power combined with the emperor weapon, Zhuo's combat strength was not comparable to Yi Yuqing, a first-level demon emperor. Therefore, the moment the two collided, Yi Yuqing was defeated. He defeated Yi Yuqing in one move. Isn't this Zhuo a little too terrifying? Looking at this scene, many of the surrounding warriors did not even react. Although they knew that Zhuo's strength could not be described by the standard of a peak heavenly master, Yi Yuqing was a first-level demon emperor expert. Such an existence could even kill a second-level emperor. But now facing Zhuo, he was defeated in one move. Wasn't this a little too unbelievable? Moyan Wuxiang and Qing Yin were also stunned. This scene had a deep impact on them. Although they knew that Zhuo's combat strength was at the emperor realm, it was really beyond their expectations to defeat Yi Yuqing so easily. As for Jianan, Gatha, and Mo Lingtian, the three of them were originally blindly confident in Zhuo. Instead, they were the calmest among the crowd. Thud, thud, thud. Zhuo slowly landed on the ground and immediately walked towards Yi Yuqing, who was in the pit. His indifferent voice rang out, "Hand over the imperial power heart." Arriving in front of Yi Yuqing, Zhuo slowly held out the Azura war halberd in his hand and pressed it against Yi Yuqing's throat. His voice was filled with coldness and killing intent. as if he could kill Yi Yuqing at any time. And the fact was indeed so. Zhuowen only needed a thought, and the Azura war halberd would take Yi Yuqing's life. Gulp. Yi Yuqing's throat trembled and his body trembled. He could feel a cold killing intent from Zhuowen's eyes. He knew that the young man in front of him was a man of his words. If he did not hand over the Imperial Power Heart, he would probably die. If I hand over the Imperial Power Heart, you have to let me go. Yi Yuqing's eyes flickered as he said. Zhuowen nodded and said, of course. After getting Zhuowen's promise, Yi Yuqing flicked his finger and took out 5 Imperial Power Hearts and handed them over to Zhuowen. The latter naturally kept them in the spiritual ring without any hesitation. The corner of his mouth revealed a smile. This was an unexpected gain for him. Get lost. Putting away the Azura war halberd, Zhuowen indifferently shouted at Yi Yuqing. Yi Yuqing's face slightly changed as he looked at Zhuowen with resentment. Then, he took a step forward and left with his subordinates from the Night Demon Island. Zhuowen, are you going to let Yi Yuqing go just like that? This guy is a poisonous snake. If you let the tiger return to the mountain, he might come after you in the future. Moyan Wuxiang came to Zhuowen's side and said with his beautiful eyes flickering, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Moreover, Yi Yuqing is Yi Wuxin's son. I'm afraid that he has some life-saving means. If I kill Yi Yuqing, it will be more troublesome. At that time, Yi Wuxin might go all out to find me. Zhuowen shook his head. He did not care about Yi Yuqing. He was still afraid of Yi Wuxin. Yi Wuxin was a 4th heaven demon emperor. Because he was a demon emperor, his battle strength was comparable to a 5th heaven demon emperor. He was even stronger than an ordinary 5th heaven demon emperor. Even Zhuowen's demon Dao doppelganger would be extremely troublesome to deal with such an existence. Therefore, killing Yi Yuqing would definitely do more harm than good. It was an unwise action. You're right. I was a little impulsive. Moyan Wuxiang looked relieved. Zhuowen was right. Yi Yuqing was Yi Wuxin's only son. Before entering the monarch tomb, Yi Wuxin must have made a lot of preparations. If he killed Yi Yuqing, Yi Wuxin would soon know. At that time, Zhuowen would have to face Yi Wuxin's crazy pursuit. The gains would not make up for the losses. And now, Zhuowen had only snatched 5 hearts of imperial power from Yi Yuqing. In addition, they were students of the Divine Institute. With the existence of the dean, Yi Wuxin couldn't do anything to Zhuowen over such a small matter. Otherwise, the dean wouldn't just sit and watch. Wuxiang, how many hearts of imperial power did you guys get? Zhuowen suddenly asked. Moyan Wuxiang and Qingyin looked at each other and smiled. We found 3 hearts of imperial power. Because there are 5 of us, we are still missing 2. Chapter 1243. Soul-extinguishing array. Moyan Wuxiang was not too courteous. He smiled and accepted the 2 hearts of imperial power from Zhuowen. After all, Zhuowen had more hearts of imperial power than any of them. Giving him 2 hearts of imperial power was nothing to him. After Moyan Wuxiang accepted the hearts of imperial power, he distributed the 5 hearts of imperial power to himself, Qingyin, Jianan, Gatha and Mo Lingtian. After the 5 of them received the hearts of imperial power, their eyes were filled with excitement. The hearts of imperial power were extremely important to warriors below the Emperor realm. It could greatly increase their chances of advancing to the Emperor realm. They could even directly advance to the Emperor realm. The benefits were extremely great. Rumble. Suddenly, a terrifying tremor spread across the land. Zhuowen, Mo Yin Wuxiang, and the others couldn't help but stagger under the effect of the tremor. Then their eyes fell on the huge gully in the middle of the land. Above the gully, countless figures covered the sky like locusts. Upon closer inspection, they were all warriors who were planning to enter the gully to search for treasures. At this moment, dense black clouds continued to gather above the gully. Soon after, these black clouds began to slowly descend in a spiraling manner. A terrifying howl was emitted from the black clouds. An incomparably large pitch-black figure slowly stepped out from within the hazy black clouds. Ah! A blood-curdling scream suddenly rang out as a gigantic palm stretched out from the black clouds. It swept out violently, causing a violent gust of wind to howl. Immediately, the martial artists who were close to it were directly struck by the gigantic palm and were instantly annihilated. Wherever this palm passed, a violent hurricane would sweep out. Under the effect of this hurricane, the surrounding cultivators all spat out mouthfuls of blood and were sent flying backwards. What is that? Looking at the gigantic figure in the terrifying black clouds, Zhuowen, Moyan Wuxiang, and the others were shocked. Although they were quite far away from the black figure, the pressure that was emitted from the latter's body gave them a feeling of fear and trepidation. You guys stay here first. I will go over there and take a look. Zhuowen instructed Moyan Wuxiang and the others. Then, he took a step forward and flew towards the gully in front of him. Looking at Zhuowen's back, Moyan Wuxiang also wanted to follow him. However, they all knew that their strength was too low. They would only become cannon fodder if they went over. In the air, Zhuowen called back his Buddha doppelganger. As for his demon doppelganger, he flew towards the gully together with Tai Demon Lord, Brother Hantian. On the way there, Zhuowen's life studio met Luan Wuxiang and Lu Hantian and the other two, Luan's studio, and the other. Lu Hantian, studio, and Luan life studio Luan and Luan. Itao Luo Xing Qing Lian, you guys stay here first. Brother Hantian, and I will go to the gully to investigate. This is the heart of imperial power. The three of you should still be lacking a heart of imperial power. You can find a safe place and refine the heart of imperial power. Then, you should be able to advance to the imperial power level in a short time. Zhuowen instructed them. Then, he headed towards the gully with Lu Hantian, Luan Wuxiang, and the others looked at each other. They did not follow them impulsively. The black figure above the gully was extremely terrifying. Even if they were peak heavenly venerables, they would probably be slapped to death. Such an existence was not something that heavenly venerables like them could interfere with. Whoosh whoosh. Very quickly, Zhuowen and Lu Hantian arrived in the vicinity of the gully. The two of them raised their heads and looked up. They just happened to see the huge black cloud in the sky, as well as the faintly discernible terrifying shadow within the black cloud. Through the hazy black cloud, Zhuowen saw the silhouette of the shadow. He discovered that the shadow's appearance was extremely similar to some kind of insect. Its surface was covered with a hard shell that was extremely bright. Its head was extremely similar to a praying mantis's, and its pair of compound eyes contained countless small eyes. It looked densely packed, causing people to feel a chill all over their bodies. A pair of huge palms, the surface of which was covered with bumpy shells. Many of the surrounding martial warriors had already joined forces. They were releasing their yuan power from afar, attacking this strange creature from afar. What is this? Is it an origin beast? But its aura doesn't seem like it at all. Lu Hantian narrowed his eyes as he stared at the faintly discernible creature in the black cloud in confusion. Zhuowen's gaze also became extremely grave. He could not identify what kind of creature this insect-like thing was. Its aura was fundamentally different from a meta beast's, but its aura gave him a vague sense of great danger. It was as if he would die a horrible death if he faced this creature. On the other side, demonic clouds rolled over, and two figures with monstrous demonic chi appeared. Zhuowen of the demonic Dao narrowed his eyes as he stared at the figure in the black clouds. He said to the Grand Demon Lord beside him, "Grand Demon, do you know what this is?" At that moment, the Grand Demon Lord's eyes were filled with doubt. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Master, I don't recognize this strange creature either. I've never seen such a creature in the panicked great world." "Is that so?" Zhuowen's eyes flickered, but he was somewhat disappointed in his heart. However, he quickly thought of Xiao He, and hurriedly called out to Xiao He in his heart. However, to his surprise, no matter how he called out to Xiao He did not make a single sound. What's wrong with Xiao He? Is she pretending to be dead? Zhuowen was stunned. He called out again, unwilling to give up. However, the result remained the same. Xiao He did not respond. With a soft sigh, Zhuowen gave up on asking Xiao He. Instead, his eyes landed on the black cloud. This was because he saw a few familiar groups in front of the black cloud. Among them, Master Mu Feng led Mo Yen, by Yen and Elder Huaxia as they quietly hovered a short distance away. On the other hand, the people from the Night Demon Island, Horizon Island, Azura Island and Sea Heart Island were scattered near Master Mufeng. They did not move. They only quietly stared at the black cloud above the gully, as if they were waiting for something. Around an hour later, the black cloud gradually withdrew. The strange creature hidden in the black cloud seemed to have evaporated into thin air, disappearing from everyone's sight. How strange! Zhuan frowned when he saw this scene. He felt even more puzzled in his heart. This strange creature had appeared for a while, and then disappeared. It was indeed a little strange. However, Zhuan was extremely curious about that creature. Did Master Mufeng and the others know that the creature will only appear briefly? Zhuan's gaze landed on Master Mufeng as he frowned. He was increasingly unable to see through Master Mufeng. Grandmaster Mufeng is truly a genius. That creature only appeared for half an hour before it completely disappeared. Wuxian is truly convinced. Yi Wuxian of the Night Demon Island suddenly laughed. He cupped his hands towards Grandmaster Mufeng and said with a smile. The other 3 island masters also revealed fawning expressions. From Master Mufeng's performance, they knew that they had to hug Master Mufeng's thigh if they wanted to obtain good things in the Emperor's tomb. After all, Master Mufeng seemed to have a better understanding of the Emperor's tomb than they did. Although they were somewhat puzzled as to why Master Mufeng had such a deep understanding of the Emperor's tomb, they did not think too much about it. After all, they had come here for the rare treasures in the Emperor's tomb. If they could obtain rare treasures by following Master Mufeng, why wouldn't they do so? Why would they bother about such things? Master Mufeng faintly smiled. He did not show any complacency because of the fawning expressions of Yi Wuxian and the others. Instead, his gaze was extremely calm. This gully is the true core region of the Emperor's tomb. Countless Emperor Realm cultivators are buried here. Of course, there are also many powerful Emperor weapons, secret techniques and rare treasures. If you are lucky enough, you might be able to obtain the treasures inside. Master Mufeng spoke once again. As soon as Master Mufeng spoke, countless cultivators in the surroundings went crazy. They did not even wait for Master Mufeng to finish speaking, and directly entered the depths of the gully. Of course, not long after these impatient cultivators entered the gully, extremely frightening screams rang out one after another, after which they completely lost all signs of life. However, there's a powerful formation inside the gorge. It's called the Soul Destruction Formation. If anyone who's below the mid-level Martial Emperor realm enters it blindly, they'll definitely die, Master Mufeng continued. At this moment, the other cultivators who had originally planned to enter the gully felt their hearts turn cold. Wasn't Master Mufeng trying to scam them? He actually only said half a sentence. After a group of people had died, he only said the second half of the sentence. It was obvious that he was trying to scam those impatient cultivators. Soul Extinguishing Array? Master, do you have a way to solve it? Yi Wuxian frowned slightly and asked in a slightly surprised manner. Master Mufeng nodded and said, Of course there is. If you want to break this Soul Extinguishing Array, it can be said to be simple, but it can also be said to be quite complicated. Breaking the Soul Extinguishing Array requires 10 mid-level Emperor Realm cultivators to stand in 10 different positions and form the 10-direction Annihilation Array. Using brute force, you can forcefully break the Soul Extinguishing Array. Yi Wuxian and the other higher-ups looked at each other. Soon after, they said in a deep voice, Master Mufeng, please tell us what to do. If we can break this Soul Extinguishing Array, we will do whatever you tell us to do. First, find 10 mid-level Emperor Realm cultivators, Master Mufeng said indifferently. Yi Wuxian nodded and discussed with the other 3 islands. Soon after, he said, Our 4 islands can provide 8 mid-level Emperor Realm cultivators. The remaining 2 mid-level Emperor Realm cultivators will be given to your excellent God Island. Master Mufeng nodded. Soon after, he said to Mo Yen, Bai Yen and Elder Huaxia, the 2 of you, come up here and make it a round number. Mo Yen, Bai Yen and Elder Huaxia looked at each other and nodded. They didn't reject Master Mufeng's suggestion. After all, Below the soul-extinguishing array was the true Emperor Realm tomb. There must be many rare treasures inside. The two of them naturally wanted to see the true appearance of the Emperor Realm tomb. Chapter 1244. Strange Black Chi. I will be the core of the 10-direction annihilation array, and all of you will be the foundation of the array. Take these 10 yuan crystals in your hands, and distribute them at 10 different locations around the gully. I will guide all of you to complete the 10-direction annihilation array from the sky above the gully. Master Mu Feng waved his sleeve as he spoke. 10 pitch-black yuan crystals flew out from his sleeves and headed towards Elder Wuxia, Yi Wuxin, and the rest of the 10 intermediate D-level practitioners. The 10 of them kept the yuan crystals and nodded towards Master Mu Feng. Then they rushed forward and stood at 10 different locations around the gully, their eyes quietly focused on Master Mu Feng as they waited for the latter to unleash the 10-direction annihilation array. Master Mu Feng took a step forward and rushed to the sky above the center of the gully. His sharp eyes quietly looked down at the gully. Following Master Mu Feng's line of sight, many people also threw their gazes towards the depths of the gully. Zhuowen was no exception. He saw that there was a churning black fog lingering in the depths of the gully. The strange thing was that this black fog would occasionally form countless human faces that whizzed in all directions. Mournful wails and howls filled the surrounding space. Is this the soul-extinguishing array that Master Mu Feng mentioned? Zhuo Wen's gaze turned grave as he looked at the howling black fog within the ravine. After all, he was a rank 6 Arcana Master. Just from the aura of the soul-destroying formation, he could tell that it was not weak at all. In fact, it could even be said to be very powerful. He clearly understood that if he were to barge into this soul-extinguishing array alone, it was likely that he would be doomed. At this moment, Master Mu Feng's hands continuously formed complicated seals. An invisible strange energy was transmitted from the seals formed by his hands. After which he shouted, "Everyone inject your energy into the yuan crystals. I will now set up the 10-direction annihilation array." Mo Yen, Bai Yen, Elder Wuxia and the rest did not dare to be negligent. All of them followed Grandmaster Mu Feng's instructions. Their right hands formed into sword fingers and pressed on the yuan crystals in their palms. Immediately, an enormous amount of yuan power surged into the yuan crystals. Waves of energy spread in all directions. Soon after, the 10 yuan crystals shot out countless black threads. These black threads were like swimming snakes as they rushed toward Grandmaster Mu Feng at the center. Under the guidance of Grandmaster Mu Feng, they intertwined with each other in midair. Finally, they weaved into a black thread ball that was dozens of feet in size. On the surface of the black silk ball, waves of destructive power surged out, causing many of the surrounding warriors to be slightly moved. The black silk ball looked ordinary, but the destructive power that it revealed was extremely terrifying. "Destroy!" Grandmaster Mu Feng shouted in a low voice. His right hand formed into a claw and grabbed the black silk ball, after which he violently pressed it downwards. The surface of the black silk ball emitted a strange zzz sound. Instantly, it was shot downwards by Grandmaster Mu Feng. At the instant when the black silk ball finally reached the soul annihilation array, the destructive power contained within it completely erupted. Instantly, the destructive power was like raindrops that filled the sky, instantly enveloping the soul annihilation array. Boom! 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 A monstrous explosion spread in all directions like a monstrous tsunami. The churning black fog within the soul-extinguishing array began to churn intensely. Countless human faces appeared. They bared their teeth and spat out a strange black energy. It was as though they were resisting this frightening destructive force. The cries of ghosts and howls of wolves were like a compressor, spreading around the entire gully and resounding in the ears of the surrounding people. It actually caused many warriors to feel pain in their eardrums, and they could not help but cover their ears with their hands. Some warriors with low cultivation almost fainted, and traces of blood flowed out of their ears. The destructive power of the 10-directional annihilation array was extremely terrifying. However, the soul annihilation array that existed within the ravine was even more terrifying. The two of them were in a deadlock in mid-air for a moment, with neither side giving way to the other. Grandmaster Mufeng frowned slightly. He suddenly pressed down with his right hand. Tens of thousands of mental energy rushed out and gathered on the annihilation ball from all directions. Immediately, the ball of annihilation suddenly exploded. An even more frightening annihilation force spread out in a ring-shaped manner in all directions of the soul-extinguishing array. In the end, it created a continuous explosion sound. Boom, boom. Under this even more intense destructive power, the surging black fog within the soul annihilation array finally showed signs of weakening. The countless human faces formed by the black fog started to explode under the corrosion of this destructive power. The entire soul annihilation array started to shake violently. Break! Grandmaster Mufeng pressed down once again. An even more surging mental energy gushed out, causing the might of the 10-directional annihilation array to become even more terrifying under the amplification of his mental energy. In the end, cracks finally appeared on the surface of the soul annihilation array. Just like shattered glass, it completely shattered. The instant the soul annihilation array was destroyed, Zhuowen frowned. He discovered that a wisp of black qi was rising from the ravine below the soul annihilation array. This wisp of black qi was extremely fine. If one did not observe it carefully, it would be difficult to detect it. Zhuowen had to rely on his powerful mental energy to discover this wisp of black qi. However, the strange thing was that when this wisp of black qi rose to mid-air, it seemed to have evaporated from the world. Zhuowen had directly lost track of this wisp of black qi. What is that thing? Zhuowen frowned as he surveyed his surroundings. He discovered that no one had noticed the wisp of black qi that had swept out from the ravine. That was because everyone's attention was attracted by the ravine below, the surging black fog, and the human faces that were formed by the black fog within the soul annihilation array had been completely destroyed. The ravine below the soul annihilation array was also visible to everyone. This ravine was extremely deep. Through the ravine, everyone could see the scene at the bottom of the ravine. The two sides of the ravine were formed by pitch-black rocks. The mottled patterns on the ravine showed the vicissitudes of the ravine. The scene at the bottom of the ravine caused many warriors to be stunned. That was because there were tombstones erected at the bottom of the ravine. Behind the tombstones were pieces of coffins. These coffins were made from black ironwood and were incomparably black. Furthermore, there were many similar coffins at the bottom of the ravine. They were densely packed together and almost filled the entire bottom of the ravine. Could it be that those coffins contain emperor corpses? Everyone's eyes were burning as they stared at the densely packed coffins at the bottom of the ravine below. One after another, they began to speculate. Their gazes turned from calm to fiery, as if a ball of fire was burning within them. Didn't Master Mufeng say that the core of the emperor's tomb was at the bottom of the ravine? Then these coffins should be the burial grounds of the emperor realm experts. This also meant that there must be a lot of resources of the emperor realm experts here. Perhaps, if one was lucky, one could obtain an emperor weapon or even an inheritance. Of course, things like inheritances were naturally left behind by high-level emperor realm experts. As for mid-level and low-level emperor realm experts, even if they left behind their inheritances, the emperor realm experts present wouldn't be interested in them. Only those below the emperor realm might be more interested in the inheritances of low-level and mid-level emperor realm experts. The upper echelons of the 5 strongest islands, as well as the other emperor realm experts in the Sea of Misery, were aiming for the inheritances of the high-level emperor realm experts at the bottom of the ravine. It was said that the strongest expert in the emperor realm was a half-saint existence. If they were lucky, they might be able to obtain the half-saint's inheritance. If they could really obtain the half-saint's inheritance, it would be a great opportunity for them. At this moment, Mo Yen, Bai Yen, Elder Huaxia, Yi Wuxin and the others who were standing at 10 different corners of the ravine were also looking at the bottom of the ravine. Their gazes were also filled with fiery passion. Soon after, their gazes fell on Master Mufeng. Master, there shouldn't be any other dangers at the bottom of the ravine, right? Yi Wuxin's throat moved as he asked. Master Mufeng's face was expressionless as he said, I'm not too sure about this. However, The yuan crystals in the hands of the 10 of you contain the aura of destruction. It can destroy all techniques. It will be of great help to you when you enter the ravine. Hearing these words, the 10 of them looked at each other. However, they very consciously kept the yuan crystals in their hands. They had personally witnessed the might of the 10 directions destruction formation. Perhaps these yuan crystals were really like what Grandmaster Mu Feng had said, and possessed the ability to destroy 10,000 techniques. Therefore, it might be quite beneficial for them as they charged through the gorge below. Let's go. Let's go down and take a look. Yi Wuxin shouted in a low voice. He took the lead and rushed into the ravine. The other 9 people looked at each other and followed closely behind Yi Wuxin. They turned into 9 bolts of lightning and entered the ravine. Master Mu Feng's eyes flickered. With a wave of his sleeve, he also disappeared from the sky above the ravine. Let's go. We'll go in as well. Seeing that Master Mu Feng and the rest had entered the bottom of the gully, quite a number of surrounding practitioners were unable to suppress the excitement in their hearts. One after another, they stepped into the air and rushed downwards. Immediately, the entire sky above the gully was filled with densely packed human figures. They were just like locusts, appearing extremely terrifying. Zhuowen, let's go in as well. Lu Hantian said to Zhuowen, who was beside him. Zhuowen nodded his head and said, Big brother Hantian, be careful when you enter this ravine. I can feel that this ravine isn't simple. There might be a trap, even more terrifying than the soul-extinguishing array inside. Hearing his words, Lu Hantian's heart trembled. He had never doubted Zhuowen's words. Therefore, his heart was filled with vigilance. Soon after, the 2 of them followed the crowd and rushed into the ravine. Of course, the instant Zhuowen entered the ravine, he used the communication jade talisman to inform Moyan Wushang, Lve Tao, and the others to enter the ravine as well. Since the ravine contained the inheritance of many Emperor Realm cultivators, it would definitely be of great help to those who had yet to enter the Emperor Realm. At the same time, Zhuowen also informed the Grand Devil Lord to wait for Moyan Wushang and the others outside the ravine. He could protect them from any life-threatening dangers in the ravine. Chapter 1245. Emperor Corpse. This wisp of black gas was extremely illusory, as if it did not exist. When the black gas rose to the highest point in the sky, the wisp of black gas wriggled and turned into a strange human figure. The appearance of this humanoid figure was very similar to an insect. Its entire body was covered in a thick and sturdy carapace, and its pair of compound eyes contained countless small eyes. It looked extremely strange. If anyone saw this strange humanoid figure, they would definitely recognize that it was the strange monster that had appeared briefly in the dark clouds in the gully just now. The strange human figure silently looked down at the depths of the gully, its compound eyes revealing a strange expression. Swoosh, swoosh. At the same time, the martial warriors clashed with their swords because of the coffin. The sound of metal clashing was accompanied by sharp screams, which converged together at the bottom of the ravine. The smell of blood permeated the air from the battle. Zhuowen and Lu Hantian also arrived at a coffin. During this time, there were naturally many cultivators who did not know better. They tried to bully the 2 of them, trying to seize control of the coffins beside them. However, after Lu Hantian released the aura of a 3rd Heaven Emperor, many of the surrounding cultivators slowly trembled in fear. They did not dare to offend Zhuowen and Lu Hantian anymore. There are about a few hundred of these coffins in this area. Are they all Emperor corpses? Lu Hantian narrowed his eyes and asked doubtfully. Creak. Suddenly, the sound of a mechanism turning slowly rang out. Immediately, the hundreds of coffin lids at the bottom of the gully opened at the same time. A strange black gas permeated out. What's going on? Zhuowen was stunned. He looked at the phenomenon of the coffins opening by themselves in surprise. Many other cultivators who entered the gully had the same doubts as Zhuowen. They did not understand. They had not touched these coffins yet. So why did they open by themselves? A mournful howl suddenly rang out in the gully. It sounded like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of wolves. It was exceptionally frightening. Boom! The coffin in front of Zhuowen and Lu Hantian was suddenly opened. Then, a smelly arm stretched out from within the darkness. A thick corpse qi, which gave off a nauseating feeling. Then, Zhuowen saw a swollen corpse slowly sitting up from within the coffin. The corpse's eyes were glowing with a strange red light. As soon as it appeared, it stared at Zhuowen and Lu Hantian. A monstrous killing intent firmly locked onto the two of them. It was not just Zhuowen and Lu Hantian's coffins. Similar things happened in the other coffins. Strange corpses sat up from the coffins one after another. Their eyes were red and filled with bloodthirsty auras. Ah! A blood-curdling scream suddenly rang out. The moment the coffin lid opened, the strange corpse in the coffin leaped up and rushed toward the nearest warrior. Its speed was as fast as lightning, and in an instant, it killed the warriors closest to it. After killing the cultivators, the corpses reached into the cultivators' bodies with their right hands, dug out their hearts, and swallowed them. Not sure if it was an illusion, Zhuowen discovered that after the corpses swallowed the cultivators' hearts, the auras on their bodies actually swelled. The originally shriveled corpses actually showed signs of being full. These corpses are absorbing the cultivators' energy. Lu Hantian's pupils shrank as he said in shock. "What?" Suddenly, the corpse in front of Zhuowen and Lu Hantian roared. Its red eyes revealed a trace of greed as it rushed towards the two of them. Lu Hantian frowned slightly. With a shake of his sleeve, a terrifying cold air wrapped around the corpse like an ice blade, causing it to fly backwards and crash heavily into the coffin. These are all Emperor corpses. Most of them are around the low-level Emperor realm. Lu Hantian said in a deep voice. Zhuowen nodded, but he was very puzzled. Why would these Emperor corpses that were buried here undergo such a strange change? Could it be that they had turned into corpses? Another roar rang out. The Emperor corpse that was sent flying by Lu Hantian stood up and rushed towards them again. Lu Hantian furrowed his brows and pinched the void with his right hand. Suddenly, a cold white star fell from the sky and heavily suppressed the Emperor corpse. However, what surprised Lu Hantian was that the Emperor corpse was extremely tough. Even when he used the full power of the star to suppress it, it could not cause any damage to its body. The Emperor corpse was even struggling under the star, full of vigor and vitality. What a strong physical body. Although this Emperor corpse is only at the first-level Emperor realm, its physical body is probably not even a third-level Emperor realm expert can destroy it. Lu Hantian muttered in a low voice. Most of the surrounding were peak heavenly venerables. After the initial panic, many peak heavenly venerables gathered together in groups of 3 to 5, blocking the Emperor corpses that rushed out from the coffin. Although they were barely able to block the Emperor corpses, at least the Emperor corpses were unable to harm the peak heavenly venerables that had joined forces. Zhuowen's gaze fell on Master Mufeng, who was not far away. After all, Master Mufeng had said that the bottom of the gorge was the core of the Emperor tomb. There were many inheritances left behind by fallen Emperor realm experts. Now that something like this had happened, Master Mufeng was the one with the biggest problem. When Zhuowen's gaze fell on Master Mufeng, he discovered that Master Mufeng also had a doubtful look on his face. It was as if he had never thought that such a situation would occur here. Master Mufeng had gathered Elder Wuxia, Mo Yen, Bai Yen, and the mid-level Great Emperors from the other 4 islands. With their formation, the surrounding Great Emperors posed no threat to them at all. Even if some of the foolish Great Emperors tried to attack them, they would be swept out of the door. There was no way they could get close to them. Master Mufeng, what's going on? Yi Wuxin asked in displeasure. As soon as Yi Wuxin's words came out, the others echoed in agreement, expressing the dissatisfaction in their hearts. After all, they did not enter this place to deal with the Emperor corpses that were neither dead nor alive, but to explore the rich resources and treasures inside. This gorge is still very large. This is only a small area. This area should be the mechanism set up by the Emperor Tomb's creator, right? Master Mufeng replied in an indifferent manner. Hearing Master Mufeng's words, the dissatisfaction in the hearts of Yi Wuxin and the others gradually faded. Their gazes fell on the area in front of the coffin area. There was a hazy fog lingering in that area, and no one knew where it led to. Let's go in and take a look. Perhaps the good stuff is in the depths. Yi Wuxin suddenly said. The others nodded, and did not have any objections. Soon after, the group broke through the air and left. The dozen of them could be considered the strongest group in the Emperor Tomb this time. Their cultivations were all mid-level Emperor realm and above. The Emperor corpses in this area were unable to do anything to them. Grandmaster Mu Feng's departure naturally attracted the attention of the other D-stage practitioners who were fighting with the Emperor corpses. Their eyes flickered as they abandoned the Emperor corpses they were fighting. Soon after, they rushed out and followed Grandmaster Mu Feng's group into the depths of the gully. There were at least 100 Emperor realm cultivators who came to the Emperor Tomb this time. Although they were all low-level Emperor realm cultivators, they were more than enough to deal with the Emperor corpses in this area. However, after the Emperor realm cultivators left, the pressure on the peak heavenly venerables in this area increased. The Emperor corpses that were abandoned by the Emperor realm cultivators gathered in the nearby battle groups, breaking the balance of the entire area. Zhuan, what should we do? Lu Hantian's eyes flickered as he frowned. In fact, Lu Hantian also wanted to follow, but he was a little worried about Lve Tao and the others. The moment they entered the gorge, he had informed Lve Tao and the others that they could enter the gorge to search for opportunities. He didn't expect that they would be in such danger as soon as they entered. Let's follow them. As for Yi Tao and the others, I have already sent the Lord of the Absolute Demon to protect them. Zhuan smiled faintly. Lu Hantian was completely relieved when he heard this. The Lord of the Absolute Demon was a third-level demon emperor. In a sense, the latter's strength was even more terrifying than Zhuan's demon Dao clone. With the Lord of the Absolute Demon's protection, the safety of Lve Tao and the others was indeed guaranteed. After blowing away the Emperor corpse in front of them with a punch, Zhuan and Lu Hantian looked at each other and also rushed out, entering the fog that obscured their vision. As soon as the Emperors left, the entire area became even more chaotic. Many peak heavenly venerables lost their lives under the joint attack of the Emperor corpses. Their hearts were dug out and devoured by the Emperor corpses, becoming nutrients for the Emperor corpses. Go! Run! Finally, some warriors at the peak of the heavenly sovereign realm couldn't hold on any longer. They shouted and used their own methods to escape from the ravine. Of course, those unlucky fellows who tried to escape died even faster. The Emperor corpse was much faster than them. When they tried to escape, the Emperor corpse caught up with them in an instant, killed them with a punch, and dug out their hearts. In the area of the Emperor corpses, Lve Tao, Luo Xing, and Qing Lian were struggling to resist the two Emperor corpses in front of them. The three of them also saw the one-sided slaughter around them, and their eyes were filled with fear. What terrifying Emperor corpses! Those Emperor corpses have all left. Those below the Emperor realm are really going to suffer, Lve Tao said bitterly. Chapter 1246. To Tao, there's another Emperor corpse. Luo Xing, who was beside him, suddenly exclaimed. Lve Tao and Qing Lian immediately raised their heads and looked over. Indeed, not far away, a martial Emperor corpse was looking at them with a pair of greedy eyes. Its scarlet eyes were staring at the three of them. Soon after, it took a step forward and dashed toward them while emitting a frightening sharp cry from its mouth. Puff! As soon as the Emperor corpse joined Lve Tao and the other two's battle, the three's attacks collapsed one after another. Soon after, they spat out mouthfuls of blood and retreated continuously. Their eyes were filled with horror. Owa! The three Emperor corpses roared and rushed out together towards Lve Tao and the other two's retreat. They wanted to completely tear the three of them into pieces. It's over. Lve Tao and the other two's faces were pale, and their eyes were filled with despair. However, just as the three Emperor corpses were about to reach them, a boundless Buddha light spread out. Immediately, the three Emperor corpses were blown away. Soon after, a figure covered in Buddha light took a step forward and landed in front of Lve Tao and the other two. Zhuan, looking at the figure covered in Buddha light, Lve Tao, and the other two heaved a sigh of relief. The figure was Zhuowen's Buddha doppelganger. I'll bring you guys out of here first. Buddha Zhuowen nodded. Soon after, he waved his Buddha palm and grabbed the three of them. Soon after, Buddha Zhuowen stomped on the ground, and the entire area shook violently. Soon after, Buddha Zhuowen shot out like an arrow and rushed towards the sky above the gully. Oh, Buddha Zhuowen's action was arrogant enough. Therefore, it immediately attracted the attention of many emperor corpses in the surrounding area. The emperor corpses abandoned the other warriors and chased after Buddha Zhuowen in an attempt to stop him. Oh, Buddha Zhuowen frowned slightly when he sensed the emperor corpses that were trying to stop him. His right hand suddenly shot out and boundless Buddha light spread out. Within the Buddha light, Zhuowen unleashed the terrifying heavenly flame, the 9 flames karmic fire. In an instant, 9 different colors appeared in the sky, and the entire gully was dyed into a sea of fire. Si. Instantly, the countless emperor corpses were blocked by the 9 flames karmic fire. Under the terrifying flame energy, they fell from the sky and smashed into the ground. The dull sound was deafening. How terrifying! Looking at the mighty Buddha Zhuowen above, many people gulped and were dumbstruck. However, even more people took advantage of this opportunity to escape. No one dared to continue. They all knew that in the core region of the emperor's tomb, there was already such a terrifying mechanism at the beginning. What was to come would definitely be even more abnormal. In the following journey, those who were not at the emperor realm would definitely die if they entered. Therefore, the heavenly venerables took advantage of the time when Buddha Zhuowen was attracting the emperor corpse's attention and secretly escaped to the top of the gully. They were prepared to search for the heart of imperial power on the ground. After all, the ground was extremely vast, and there would definitely be many heart of imperial power. This thing was not very useful for emperor realm warriors, but it was very useful for warriors who had not reached the emperor realm. The moment the 9 flames karmic fire blocked the emperor corpses outside, Zhuowen took a step and rushed to the edge of the gully. With a wave of his Buddha palm, Lve Tao and the other two reappeared in front of him. The moment Buddha Zhuowen appeared, a billowing demonic qi burst out from the bottom of the gully. Endless demonic qi gushed out. At some point, Taiyamo Lord had also come up from below. He waved his sleeve, and the demonic qi around him rolled away. Then Moyan Wuxiang and the other 4 appeared. Moyan Wuxiang and the others were still in a daze. Earlier, when they were working together to deal with the emperor corpse, Taimo Lord suddenly appeared in front of them. Without saying a word, he used demonic qi to envelop them. Although they wanted to resist, Taimo Lord was too powerful. Their resistance was futile. After Moyan Wuxiang and the other 4 came back to their senses, they all took a few steps back. They stared at Taimo Lord with vigilance and said, "Who are you?" Taimo Lord was too lazy to pay attention to Moyan Wuxiang and the other 4. Instead, he came before Buddha Zhuowen and said respectfully, "Master, I've brought the people you asked for." "Master?" Only then did Moyan Wuxiang and the others notice Zhuowen, who was standing not far away. They quickly recognized Zhuowen's identity. Zhuowen explained a little to dispel the doubts in their hearts. However, they were still shocked that such a powerful devil emperor, like the Lord of Absolute Demons, would recognize Zhuowen as his master. This was a little unbelievable. The depths of this ravine are too dangerous for you, who have yet to reach the martial emperor realm. You should just stay here obediently. You can also use this time to refine the heart of imperial power. If you are lucky enough, you might be able to break through to the martial emperor realm, Zhuowen said. Moyan Wuxiang's group and Lve Tao's group looked at each other and nodded. Zhuowen was right. Just the emperor corpses below were troublesome enough, let alone the depths of the gully, which was even more dangerous. My Buddhist avatar will bring you all to a relatively safe place in this land. Then, he will stand guard while you refine the heart of imperial power. As for Supreme Demon, you can continue to head deeper into the ravine. Zhuowen suddenly turned to look at Lord of Supreme Demon. Taiyamo Lord nodded. Without further ado, he took a step forward and entered the gully again. As for Buddha Zhuowen, He waved his hand and led Mo and Wuxiang and the other four to other places in search of a relatively quiet area. Soon, the place where the emperor corpses were was emptied. They either left or died. In an instant, the entire area was deathly silent. It was extremely strange. Hundreds of emperor corpses raised their heads slightly. Their scarlet eyes looked at the sky above the gully, as if there was something there that was worthy of their attention. Swoosh! A wisp of black gas fell from the sky. It was illusory. When the wisp of black gas fell into the emperor corpses area, countless emperor corpses' eyes flickered. Then they slowly knelt on one knee and whimpered softly. The wisp of black gas lingered in the area where the emperor corpses were. Then, human faces condensed in the area where the emperor corpses were. They gathered in the black gas, causing it to expand continuously. These human faces were the souls of the cultivators who had died in the emperor corpses area. Now they were mixed with resentment, and were all absorbed by the wisp of black gas. After absorbing the souls, the wisp of black gas slowly drifted into the depths of the gully. After the wisp of black gas left, the scarlet eyes of the emperor corpses gradually dimmed. Then, they stepped back into their coffins and fell into a deep sleep. In the depths of the gully, Zhuowen and Lu Hantian silently followed behind the hundreds of emperor realm cultivators. At the same time, they were constantly paying attention to the dangers around them. Along the way, there were many towering trees that reached the clouds. The surface of these trees was incomparably black. They seemed to have blended in with the surrounding black fog. At first glance, it was difficult to distinguish the difference between the black fog and the trees. There are so many experts in the Bitter Sea. There are almost 100 Emperor Realm cultivators. Looking at the powerful figures in front of him, Lu Hantian's eyes narrowed. Although most of them were low-level Emperor Realm cultivators, this was already enough to surprise him. After all, there was only one Emperor Qing in the Qingxian Empire. In the Bitter Sea, there were so many Emperor Realm cultivators. For a moment, Lu Hantian found it hard to adapt. Zhuowen smiled but did not explain. After all, the Bitter Sea was much bigger than the Qingxian Empire. Its territory was also incomparably vast. The number of experts nurtured in the Bitter Sea was naturally much more than in a small place like the Qingxian Empire. After advancing for about an hour, Zhuowen and Lu Hantian realized that the cultivators in front of them had stopped in their tracks and were silently staring ahead. Even Master Mu Feng and the group at the front had stopped in their tracks. Zhuowen and Lu Hantian leaped to the top of a tree in front of them. They followed the gaze of the crowd and looked at the front. Then they saw a strange building. There was an extremely long square staircase in front of him. The staircase had the color of white jade, and at the top of the long staircase was a huge tombstone. The tombstone was extremely majestic, and there were many palaces standing in it. There were countless lamps floating in the sky around the tombstone. These everlasting lamps seemed to have been shining since the beginning of time. They had never been extinguished. What a majestic tombstone! Whose tomb is this? Looking at the huge tombstone, everyone was shocked. There was only one thought in their minds. Who was the owner of such a huge tomb? Who built such a magnificent mausoleum? This tomb was probably built by the strongest expert of the Imperial region. Could it be that the strongest expert of the Imperial region, the half-saint, is buried here? Zhuowen was also shocked by the tomb before him. He could not help but mutter in a low voice. At the front, the breathing of all the Emperor Realm cultivators who had stopped in their tracks suddenly became rough. Their eyes were blazing as they stared at the huge tomb before them. Everyone knew that this tomb should be the core of the entire Emperor tomb. All the resources and treasures of the Imperial region must be stored inside. Grandmaster Mu Feng waved his sleeve and took the lead to fly towards the mausoleum. With Grandmaster Mu Feng taking the lead, Yi Wuxin and the others behind him also flew out. Soon after, many other martial emperors crazily rushed into the mausoleum. Let's go in too. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. Together with Lu Hantian, they silently followed the large group into the tomb. Chapter 1247. 8-Gate Golden Lock Formation. Is there a sky restriction around the stairs? Looks like we can't fly into the tomb. We can only climb up. An uproar immediately broke out in the surroundings. Many cultivators felt the crushing pressure on their bodies and revealed looks of surprise. Soon after, they understood that someone had set up a no-fly zone around the mausoleum. Soon after, they obediently climbed up step by step. Even Master Mu Feng and the upper echelons of the other islands landed on the stairs and climbed up step by step. The pressure on the stairs is really strong. Feeling the crushing pressure, Zhuowen's footsteps became somewhat difficult. Then, he looked at the long flight of stairs above him, and the corners of his eyes continuously twitched. We can only climb up step by step. Lu Hantian shrugged. Although Lu Hantian was a third heaven emperor, he still found it difficult to adapt to the pressure on the stairs. However, it wasn't to the point where he couldn't even lift his feet. Thus the stairs appeared. Nearly 100 people were silently climbing the stairs. No one spoke, and the atmosphere was strangely quiet. Master Mu Feng and the others were the first to reach the top of the stairs. However, they didn't directly enter the tomb. Instead, they waited silently on the stairs. After a short while, the other Emperor Realm cultivators reached the top of the stairs. Everyone stood to one side. It wasn't because they didn't want to enter the tomb. It was because some of the cultivators who tried to enter the tomb discovered that there was a layer of extremely strong defensive restriction around the tomb. With their individual strength, it would be extremely difficult for them to break through the defensive restriction. Thus, everyone placed their gazes on the only Arcana Heavenly Master, Grandmaster Mu Feng. In terms of formations, only Grandmaster Mu Feng, as an Arcana Heavenly Master, understood them the best. Since Master Mu Feng didn't say anything, no one dared to say anything. They knew that Master Mu Feng would definitely take action. As more and more people reached the top of the stairs, Bai Yu and the other 5 from the inner court also reached the top. The 6 of them consciously stood behind Elder Wuxia and waited silently. Yi Yuqing of the Night Demon Island also silently walked behind Yi Wuxin. The martial emperors of the other 3 islands also came to the side of the 3 island masters. Everyone's gaze fell on Grandmaster Mu Feng. Zhuowen, come here. Moyan and Bai Yin also noticed Zhuowen, who had just climbed up the stairs. They waved their hands and spoke with a smile on their faces. As soon as Moyan and Bai Yin spoke, a cold light erupted from the eyes of Bai Yu's group. Behind Yi Wuxin, Yi Yuqing's expression was somewhat unsightly. Her eyes were filled with resentment. The others naturally also noticed the Zhuowen mentioned by Moyan and Bai Yin. When the other warriors discovered that Zhuowen's cultivation was only at the peak of the Heavenly Master realm, they all revealed looks of surprise. They had not expected that a mere ant at the peak of the Heavenly Master realm would be able to break into this tomb. However, after sensing the 3rd-level Emperor Realm aura of Lu Hantian, who was standing beside Zhuowen, the warriors' eyes revealed a look of relief. Clearly, they guessed that the reason Zhuowen could reach this place was due to Lu Hantian's contribution. Zhuowen, he is. Moyan and Bai Yin stared at Lu Hantian, who was standing beside Zhuowen. They were somewhat puzzled as they asked. Big brother Hantian came from the same place as me, and is also my bosom friend. Zhuowen casually explained. Moyan and Bai Yin nodded. They glanced at Lu Hantian and whispered to Zhuowen. Zhuowen, this tomb is full of dangers. Although I know that your battle strength is extraordinary, I'm afraid that it's somewhat inappropriate to enter. Do you think? Zhuowen shook his head and interrupted Moyan and Bai Yin. Dean, don't worry. Big brother Hantian's cultivation is at the 3rd-level Emperor realm after all. I feel that if I follow him, I will have no problem protecting myself. Hearing Zhuowen's words, Moyan and Bai Yin also knew that Zhuowen had made up his mind. Naturally, they did not say anything more. Instead they asked again, how is Wuxiang now? Dean, don't worry. Miss Wuxiang is very safe now. She has already successfully left the dangerous ravine. Zhuowen said concisely. Moyan and Bai Yin nodded. Since Zhuowen had said so, it meant that Moyan Wuxiang was indeed safe. Therefore, the trace of worry in their hearts gradually disappeared, and they focused all their attention on the tomb. At the entrance of the tomb, there were 2 huge bronze statues of strange beasts. The strange beasts had the head of a lion and the body of a horse. Their bloody mouths were wide open, as if they wanted to devour the world. The surface of the tomb contains defensive restrictions. We'll have to trouble Grandmaster Mu Feng with this matter. Yi Wuxin and the others said to Grandmaster Mu Feng with a flattering smile. The surrounding cultivators also revealed hopeful expressions. They were all looking forward to Grandmaster Mu Feng being able to remove the restrictions around the tomb. Of course. However, the dangers within the tomb are definitely higher than the outside. Therefore, after entering, I hope that everyone can be united. Grandmaster Mu Feng suddenly said solemnly. Hearing those words, the surrounding people's eyes flickered. However, there were also quite a few people who disagreed with Grandmaster Mu Feng's words. After entering the tomb, there were still some people who were unwilling to follow Grandmaster Mu Feng. They were more inclined to work alone. If they were lucky, they might be able to obtain some good things. Grandmaster Mu Feng, I don't think that it's up to you to decide whether or not the group is united. This is our freedom. As long as we enter the tomb, it'll be fine as long as everyone does their own things. Suddenly, an Emperor Realm cultivator from the crowd retorted, attracting everyone's attention. The Emperor Realm cultivator had a rather tall stature. Half of his body was covered in leather, revealing the bulging muscles on the right side of his body. The aura emitted from his body was rather powerful. He was actually a third-level Emperor Realm cultivator. For a wandering cultivator, this was already considered not weak. There were 7 people following behind him. They should be his companions. All of them agreed with the Emperor Realm cultivator's opinion. Of course, I won't force you. It's all up to you. Grandmaster Mu Feng indifferently said. His gaze fell onto the restrictions around the tomb. After examining them for a while, he muttered in a low voice. If I'm not wrong, the array set up around the tomb should be the 8-gate golden lock array. I'm afraid that it won't be easy to break this array. Grandmaster Mu Feng, what do we need to do? Yi Wuxian hastily asked. Since this restriction is called the 8-gate golden lock formation, if you want to break it open, then you'll need 8 cultivators to simultaneously blast at the 8 void doors within the formation and break it open with force. During this process, I'll be able to pry into the flaws and gaps of the 8-gate golden lock formation. At that time, it'll be easy to break open the formation, Master Mu Feng said indifferently. Yi Wuxian was startled. Soon after, he understood Grandmaster Mu Feng's meaning. His green eyes quickly locked onto the 8 people not far away. These 8 people were the ones who had retorted Grandmaster Mu Feng earlier. Since the 8-gate golden lock array needs 8 people, you guys are just right. Hurry up and get over here. Follow Grandmaster Mu Feng's instructions and attack the 8 gates of emptiness. Yi Wuxian indifferently said. Hearing Yi Wuxian's words, the faces of the 8 people instantly changed, especially the tall man leading them. With a gloomy voice he said, Are you planning to make an example out of us? What? Only Grandmaster Mu Feng can open the 8-gate golden lock array. The group of us are all waiting to enter the tomb. The 8 of you can try to refuse. Haha. Yi Wuxian's tone became somewhat unfriendly as he coldly laughed. The gazes of the surrounding cultivators also landed on the 8 people. All of them wanted to enter the tomb. Since Grandmaster Mu Feng had said that 8 people were needed to attack the 8-gate golden lock array, it was needless to say that it would be an extremely dangerous task. In addition to the fact that the 8 people had taken the lead and were remembered by Grandmaster Mu Feng, the crowd was naturally eager for the 8 of them to take the lead and break the 8-gate golden lock array. Seeing the nearly 100 unfriendly gazes around them, the faces of the 8 people grew increasingly pale. In the end, the tall man leading the group firmly fixed his gaze on Yi Wuxian and Grandmaster Mu Feng as he coldly said, Do the 8 of us have no other choice? What do you think? Grandmaster Mu Feng revealed a faint smile as he replied, Good. We'll attack the 8 gates of emptiness. The tall man straightforwardly agreed. He was very clear that if they did not agree, there was no need for Grandmaster Mu Feng to take action. The surrounding Emperor stage cultivators would definitely take action to capture them. After all, 8 people were needed to break the array, Since the 8 of them had taken the lead, the rest of the crowd would naturally not let go of such a stepping stone. The 8 gates of emptiness are located there. All of you only need to attack the 8 gates of emptiness. With a flick of his finger, 8 rays of light shot out from Grandmaster Mu Feng's finger and landed in 8 different positions of the restriction. At each of the 8 positions, there was a vague and illusory door. Let's go. The tall man coldly snorted as he led the other 7 people towards the 8 locations that Grandmaster Mu Feng had pointed out. When they arrived at the 8 gates of emptiness, Grandmaster Mu Feng indifferently said, "Start attacking the 8 gates." Boom boom boom. The 8 of them nodded their heads. Each of them threw a punch forward. Immediately, traces of ripples appeared on the surface of the 8 doors of emptiness, just like ripples in water. At the same time, a powerful rebounding force was transmitted from the doors of emptiness, causing the 8 of them to snort and retreat continuously. Continue, Grandmaster Mu Feng indifferently said. This caused the faces of the 8 of them to become slightly ugly. However, they were helpless and could only continue attacking the 8 gates golden lock array. Under the frightening ripples that spread out from the array, the faces of the 8 of them became increasingly pale, as fresh blood continuously flowed out from the corners of their mouths. Is it not done yet? The tall man fiercely spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. His hair was already disheveled as he furiously shouted, "Why are you in such a hurry?" Not yet. Grandmaster Mu Feng caressed his fingers as he casually said, "Haha, Grandmaster Mu Feng, do you think that I don't know that you are abusing your authority to take revenge for a private grudge? The reason why you want the 8 of us to attack the 8 gates is because you want us to die. Since that is the case, I might as well directly kill you." Chapter 1248. Demon Soldier. The moment the tall man rushed over, the other 7 people followed behind him with murderous looks on their faces. They knew that Grandmaster Mu Feng was obviously using his position to avenge a personal grudge. Rather than being killed by him, they would rather have a head-on battle. You overestimate yourself. Grandmaster Mu Feng didn't move, but Yi Wu Xian, who was beside him, moved. 8 illusory figures shot out from his green hair. If one were to look carefully, those 8 illusory figures were actually 8 small snakes. In the instant they shot out, the 8 small snakes instantly swelled up, becoming several tens of feet long, as they shot towards the 8 people led by the tall man. Poochie. In just a single exchange, other than the tall man, the other 7 people were bitten into 2 by the 7 huge pythons. Blood splattered across the horizon, as if it was raining blood. It was an extremely miserable sight. No. Seeing the 7 people die in an instant, the tall man's eyes turned scarlet red. His eyes were filled with grief and indignation. However, the huge pythons that Yi Wuxin had manifested were extremely terrifying. The tall man was completely suppressed by the huge pythons, unable to escape. Don't worry, you will also accompany your brother. Yi Wuxin's cold voice sounded from behind the tall man. Soon after, the tall man felt a pain in his chest. He was shocked to discover that a hand had pierced through his chest. When he turned his head, he saw Yi Wuxin's cold smile. Soon after, his consciousness fell into darkness. Plop. When the tall man's corpse fell from the sky, the surrounding people were all silent. No one dared to make a sound. Yi Wuxin was a demon emperor, and also the island master of the Night Demon Island. His strength was extremely terrifying. Although he was only a 4th Heaven Demon Emperor, his fighting strength was comparable to an ordinary 5th Heaven Emperor. No one dared to provoke such an existence. After dealing with the tall man, Yi Wuxin walked towards Grandmaster Mu Feng and said with a smile, "Grandmaster, I wonder if you have found the loopholes of the 8 gates golden lock formation?" Grandmaster Mu Feng nodded and said, "Naturally. I plan to break the formation next. Don't disturb me." As he spoke, Grandmaster Mu Feng began to set up a method to break the array. The rest of the people revealed looks of anticipation in their eyes. Zhuowen, who was behind Moyen and Bai Yen, frowned slightly. The tactics of this Grandmaster Mu Feng were extremely vicious. Even he felt a chill. If he had guessed correctly, Grandmaster Mu Feng, had already discovered the weakness of the 8-gate golden lock formation when the 8 of them attacked it for the first time. However, Grandmaster Mufeng did not ask the 8 of them to stop. Instead, he asked them to continue attacking the formation with all their might. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that Grandmaster Mufeng was simply taking revenge on the tall man and the others. He had taken their lives just because they had offended him. Grandmaster Mufeng's ruthless methods caused even Zhuowen to feel a chill in his heart. Creak. Suddenly, the sound of the mechanism being activated resounded throughout the entire space. Soon after, the strange beasts that were sitting on both sides of the entrance of the tomb seemed to have come alive. They suddenly emitted a roar. The door in the middle of the strange beasts slowly opened. The invisible restriction that appeared on the surface of the door also gradually disappeared. The instant the door opened, everyone's eyes became fiery hot. What exactly existed in this mysterious tomb? This tomb is definitely filled with danger. It's better for everyone to gather together. Grandmaster Mufeng's indifferent voice rang out once again, causing the hearts of quite a number of practitioners to tremble. All of them nodded their heads. In any case, they were completely unfamiliar with this tomb. Therefore, it would be safer for everyone to gather together and explore. As for those practitioners who wanted to explore alone, they temporarily gave up on such thoughts after recalling the fate of the tall and big man. Enter! Grandmaster Mufeng roared out in a low voice. He took the lead and led the people from Excellent Spirit Island into the tomb, following which, the Night Demon Island, Azura Island, Horizon Island and Sea Heart Island followed in succession. After the people from the 5 strongest islands had all entered, the remaining loose cultivators rushed into the door. Very quickly, the originally bustling top of the stairs became empty and desolate. Not long after everyone entered, a wisp of black cheese slowly swept over from afar. This wisp of black cheese stopped at the entrance of the tomb and started to squirm. It actually took the form of a strange human figure. A pair of scarlet eyes stared straight at the entrance of the tomb. There was an indescribable emotion in its eyes. "All, have you entered?" A somewhat indistinct voice was emitted from the mouth of the strange human figure. After that, it fell into silence. After the silence, the strange human figure once again turned into a wisp of black chi and drilled into the entrance of the tomb. Is this the interior of the tomb? The scenery in front of their eyes suddenly changed. Soon after, Zhuowen and the rest saw that there were mountain peaks in their surroundings. These mountain peaks were incomparably desolate. Not a single blade of grass grew. The ground was a decadent desert. However, at the end of the continuous mountain peaks, there were actually many palaces that were floating in the air. Those palaces were scattered in picturesque disorder as they floated in the air. In the 4 directions of the palace world, there were 4 huge golden light pillars. Every single golden light pillar was extremely huge as it pierced through the clouds. It was as if they were supporting the small world that the palaces were located in. That should be the center of the tomb. It is also the ultimate goal of our trip to the Emperor's tomb. Grandmaster Mufeng pointed at the palace world that was supported by the 4 golden light pillars. His indifferent voice slowly rang out like a large bell as it resounded in everyone's ears. As his words fell, everyone's gazes landed on the palace world that was extremely far away. However, the palace world was too far away from them. They could only see a rough outline. Ha! Ha! However, very quickly, everyone's gazes were attracted by the strange sounds coming from the mountain peak in front of them. They saw that the sky above the mountain peak was densely packed with white pieces. If one were to take a closer look, this white color was actually the white light that was reflected by the dense cold armor. That is, Grandmaster Mufeng's gaze was immediately attracted by the white light. When his gaze landed on the mountain peak, he finally saw the true appearance of the white light. It was actually soldiers wearing armor. If one were to take a closer look, the appearance of these soldiers did not look like humans at all. Instead, they looked like some kind of demonic beast. This was because the surface of these creatures was covered with strange scales. They had long lizard tails behind their backs. Their eyes were even like those of a lizard. They were cold and emotionless. Moreover, they were filled with a coldness that disregarded life. Someone has broken into the tomb? It's a human. It's another damned human. Kill. 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 Unexpectedly, when these lizard-like creatures saw Grandmaster Mu Feng and the group of Emperor Realm warriors, they seemed to have gone berserk. With a furious roar, they madly rushed towards Grandmaster Mu Feng and the group. It was as if they had a deep grudge against Grandmaster Mu Feng and the group. The leader of these lizard-like soldiers had an exceptionally large body. He was at least 3 times the size of an ordinary soldier. He held a large axe with 2 blades in his hands. With a large bloody mouth, he led several hundred soldiers and rushed over in a grandiose manner. It's actually demonic soldiers? Damn it. There are actually demonic soldiers in here. Yi Wuxin, who was standing beside Grandmaster Mu Feng, saw the grandiose demonic soldiers rushing over. His face turned a little green and purple. It was extremely ugly. Demonic soldiers? Everyone was a little confused. Clearly, this was the first time that they had heard of demonic soldiers. Demonic soldiers? In layman's terms, it's an army formed by demonic emperors. Every demonic soldier's strength is at least at the first layer demonic emperor realm. There are several hundred demonic soldiers. I'm afraid that it'll be very difficult to deal with them. Especially the leader. I'm afraid that he's at the 3rd layer demonic emperor realm. Moreover, this group of demonic soldiers seems to be well trained. They possess a terrifying battle strength that can take on 10 people at once. In addition to their tacit cooperation, I'm afraid that it'll be extremely difficult to deal with them. Yi Wuxin slowly said. What? They're all demonic emperors? Everyone was shocked. They had already experienced how terrifying demonic emperors were from Yi Wuxin. Although they could sense that the several hundred demonic soldiers rushing over were all at the 1st layer demonic emperor realm, they were demonic emperors. Even if they were ordinary demonic emperors that had advanced from origin beasts, their strength was still much more terrifying than ordinary 1st layer demonic emperors. In addition to the huge number of demonic soldiers in front of them, everyone was somewhat unable to imagine the consequences. What are you afraid of? We have close to 100 1st layer demonic emperor realm practitioners here. Furthermore, all of them are at the 1st layer demonic emperor realm and above. If we work together, why should we be afraid of these demonic soldiers? Grandmaster Mu Feng was extremely calm as he cried out in a low voice. After hearing Grandmaster Mu Feng's words, everyone's hearts were greatly reassured. Grandmaster Mu Feng was right. Although they did not have as many people as the demonic soldiers rushing over, there were still close to 100 of them. Furthermore, all of them were elites. As long as they worked together, they really did not need to be afraid of these demonic soldiers. At the same time, Grandmaster Mu Feng waved his sleeve. Immediately, numerous lustrous and glowing yuan crystals shot out. Soon after, they surrounded everyone like a storm. Within every single yuan crystal, extremely powerful energy erupted. Ow! Soon after, the energy squirmed and condensed into 9 huge snake heads. Every single snake head was several hundred feet in size. Baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, they were exceptionally terrifying. This is the 9-headed snake formation. Distribute the people evenly among the 9 snake heads. It will be able to gather everyone's strength together and unleash an even greater power. Grandmaster Mu Feng said in an indifferent manner. Many warriors revealed grateful expressions in their eyes when they heard this. Soon after, under the arrangement of Grandmaster Mu Feng, they were evenly distributed among the 9 snake heads. Grandmaster Mu Feng, on the other hand, sat on the body of the 9-headed snake and presided over the formation of the entire 9-headed snake. Chapter 1249. Demon Soldier Leader of the 9 Snake Heads. The first was led by Elder Wuxia, the second by Yi Wuxin, the third by Mo Yen and Bai Yen, and the fourth by Azura Li Di. As for the 5th and 6th, they were led by Chun Haixin and Tian Juya. As for the remaining 3, they were led by people chosen by Grandmaster Mu Feng. As the name implied, among the 9 snake heads, the first snake head would naturally be the strongest. while the ninth snake head would be the weakest. As for the strongest snake head, it would naturally be controlled by the strongest elder Wuxia. As for Yi Wuxin, although his strength was on par with Moyan and Bai Yin, he was a demon emperor and was more familiar with demon soldiers. Thus, Grandmaster Mu Feng had arranged for him to be the second snake head. Bang bang bang! Hundreds of demon soldiers surged over like giant waves that blotted the skies. In an instant, they had reached the nine-headed snake formation. Their fierce attacks rumbled as they smashed down, heavily smashing against the nine-headed snake formation, causing it to violently shake. Everyone, pour your Yuan power into the Yuan formation to resist the attacks of the demon soldiers. Amidst the oppressive tremors, Master Mu Feng sat on the snake's body without moving like a rock, and he spoke calmly. Everyone nodded their heads as they poured their Yuan power into the nine-headed snake formation. Under the command of the leaders of the various snake heads, the formation appeared to be in an orderly fashion. In an instant, the 9 snake heads turned violent, smashing towards the demon soldiers in front of them, without the slightest bit of politeness. Seeing that the 9-headed snake formation was actually able to display such a powerful might, many of the practitioners within the formation revealed expressions of excitement. Zhuan's eyes also shone with brilliance. This Mu Feng was indeed a heavenly arcane master. The 9-headed snake formation that he had arranged was not something that she could compare to. Furthermore, its might was extremely frightening. If I'm able to become a heavenly arcane master, perhaps I might be able to arrange such a powerful formation, right? Zhuan's eyes sparkled as she muttered to herself. Bang bang bang. Caught off guard, the demon soldiers were forced to continuously retreat under the attacks of the 9 snake heads. A sliver of astonishment flashed within the eyes of the leader of the demon soldiers. In the next instant he roared out, "Form the formation and kill! Kill! Kill!" Monstrous battle cries rang out. The demonic soldiers that were repelled by the 9-headed snake were arranged in a strange formation in the sky. Waves of demonic aura spread out and instantly enveloped all the demonic soldiers, forming a hazy green fog. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, a huge hand that was hundreds of meters long stretched out from the green mist. The surface of the hand was covered with green scales, and the scales emitted a cold light. The moment the hand stretched out, a huge foot stepped out, and then a huge figure appeared in front of the 9-headed snake. It was a gigantic lizard man with green mist lingering on its surface. Its billowing demonic energy seemed to cover the sky and the sun, enveloping the entire area. The lizardman's appearance was similar to that of the demon soldier. Its surface was also covered in a chilling armor, and it held a gigantic spear that was like a pillar supporting the heavens. This is a formation unique to the demon soldiers. It can gather all the demon soldiers' energy and form a huge demon soldier phantom. Yi Wuxin's eyes were a little gloomy as he spoke. How do we break the formation? Elder Wuxia of the first snakehead suddenly asked. Do you see the leader of the demon soldiers on the demon soldier phantom? The reason why the demon soldiers are able to set up such a powerful formation is mainly because of the demon soldier phantom's command. The leader of the demon soldiers has supreme prestige among the demon soldiers. He is also proficient in many military formations. If the leader of the demon soldiers dies, the formation will be useless. Yi Wuxin pondered for a moment and said. Master Mu Feng frowned and said, Who is willing to deal with the leader of the demon soldiers? Everyone fell silent. The leader of the demon soldiers was very powerful. It was a 3rd-level demon emperor, which was even more terrifying than a 4th-level demon emperor. Only a few middle-level demon emperors could deal with such an existence. However, Elder Wuxia, Yi Wuxin, and the other middle-level demon emperors were all in charge of the snake heads. They had no time to deal with the leader of the demon soldiers. Let me do it. A cold and indifferent voice slowly resounded, immediately attracting everyone's attention. Everyone's eyes gathered over, only to discover a young man with long black and red hair, whose eyes were alternating between black and red, slowly walking out from one of the snake heads. His eyes were cold and emotionless. It was as though there was no other emotion in his eyes other than this one. Can you do it? Yi Wuxin's eyes fell on the young man. He could not help but ask when he saw how young the young man was. Why can't I? The demonic young man chuckled. Demonic chi surged out from his body. A wild aura gushed out. His long hair fluttered in the wind. It's a third-level demon emperor. Besides the demon emperors, there is also a demon emperor among us. Moreover, it's a third-level demon emperor. Feeling the powerful aura of the demonic young man, the eyes of all the warriors in the nine-headed snake formation turned cold. Yi Wuxin was a demon emperor. Everyone naturally knew that. However, they did not expect that there was a demon emperor among them who was not weaker than the demon emperors. The demonic young man's performance was mediocre at the beginning. However, at the critical moment he showed his extraordinary strength. This made many people think highly of him. It's that bastard's thing. Bai Yu, who was following Elder Wuxia in the first snake head, naturally also saw the demonic young man who was surrounded by everyone. He was so angry that his entire body trembled. Wasn't this demonic young man the one who had snatched the heart of imperial power from him outside the gully back then? Bai Yu, do you know this demonic young man? Elder Wuxia also noticed Bai Yu's strange behavior and could not help but ask. Bai Yu's eyes flickered. He said in a low voice, "This demonic young man is the one who snatched the heart of imperial power from me." I see. This demonic young man's cultivation has reached the third-level demon emperor at such a young age. His talent is not bad. No wonder you lost to him, Elder Wuxia said slowly. However, his voice was even colder than before. The corner of Bai Yu's mouth twitched when he heard this. After all, he was a rather famous genius in the inner court sky capital peak. Losing to this demonic youth was definitely a stain and humiliation to him. Naturally, he would feel somewhat uneasy if Elder Wuxia knew about this. Jiang Ying and the other 4 people standing behind Bai Yu kept quiet out of fear. No one spoke. Under such circumstances, they did not dare to interrupt. Bai Yu, you don't have to be too conflicted. Everyone knows the combat strength of a third-level demon emperor. Your defeat is not too humiliating. When your cultivation increases in the future, you can step on this demonic young man who defeated you again, Elder Wuxia said indifferently. Bai Yu sighed when he heard this. His eyes flickered as he probed. Elder, this guy ignored our inner yard and openly snatched my heart of imperial power. Do you think we should? Elder Wuxia shook his head and said, "This demonic youth's strength is not bad. He will be quite useful once he enters the tomb. Moreover, he is now going out to deal with the leader of the demonic soldiers under Master Mu Feng's request. What do you think?" Bai Yu quickly lowered his head and did not dare to answer. He knew that now was not the time to deal with this demonic young man. Good. If you can help us kill the leader of the demon soldiers, I, Mu Feng, will remember your merit, Master Mu Feng said with a laugh. Zhuowen nodded and said with a smile, "Thank you, Master Mu Feng. Don't go out now. When the nine-headed snake and the lizard man are fighting, I will let you out of the nine-headed snake's array the moment they reveal a flaw. At that time, you just need to find an opportunity to pin down the leader of the demon soldiers. As long as you pin down the leader of the demon soldiers and prevent him from commanding the demon soldiers, we will be able to let the nine-headed snake destroy the lizardman's array," Master Mu Feng said again. "Oh!" A roar resounded. Soon after, the earth rumbled with earth-shattering vibrations. It was as if the heavens and earth were being turned upside down. The hundreds of demon soldiers that had transformed into a giant lizard walked over step by step. It swung its giant spear, that was like a pillar that supported the heavens. Immediately, the heavens and earth changed color, and the space collapsed. It slashed towards the nine-headed snake with a rumble. A proud and aloof figure stood silently on the lizard's head. This figure was the leader of the demon soldiers, who was commanding the demon soldiers with his divine sense. It was because of this demon soldier leader's command that the giant lizard was able to unleash all sorts of powerful attacks. The nine-headed snake did not show any signs of weakness. Under Master Mu Feng's control, its power was not much weaker than the lizard. Boom! 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 In the sky above the endless mountain peaks, the giant nine-headed snake and the lizard instantly engaged in battle. The earth-shattering power spread out, causing the surrounding space to collapse. The rumbling thunderclap-like sounds seemed to have spread throughout the entire space. The mountain range below trembled intensely under the aftermath of the great battle. The leader of the demon soldiers, that was standing on the head of the lizard, frowned. He did not expect that the nine-headed snake formation, formed by the human warriors, would be so powerful. The demon soldiers that he was controlling were unable to do anything to it. The intruders this time around are really difficult to deal with. However, no matter how difficult it is to deal with you, I will let you know the severity of the consequences of intruding into the tomb. The leader of the demon soldiers coldly muttered. Soon after, he formed a seal with both of his hands. It was as if he was forming some kind of mysterious seal. Waves of demonic energy rushed out from the body of the leader of the demon soldiers. Now is the time. Go and restrain the leader of the demon soldiers. Don't let him form the seal successfully. Master Mufang's eyes flickered. Immediately, he waved his sleeve, and a gap appeared within the nine-headed snake. This gap was the one that led to the outside world. Chapter 1250. Junqingdingha? The eyelids of the leader of the demonic soldiers twitched. When he saw the great demon halberd flying towards him, his pupils shrunk to the size of needles. He cursed in his heart, and immediately stopped forming seals with his hands. His right leg suddenly took a step forward, and the great demon halberd was dodged by him. Soon after, his demonic eyes stared intently at Zhuowen, who was charging towards him. Demon Emperor? When he saw the surging demonic aura on Zhuowen's body, he was startled. Soon after, he coldly snorted, and commanded the lizard creature to attack Zhuowen. The lizard creature was formed by hundreds of demonic soldiers, and was much more powerful than a third heaven demon emperor. A single attack was enough to annihilate this overconfident young man from the demonic path. Nine-headed snake formation activate. Master Mufang, who was seated on the nine-headed snake, waved his sleeves and surging mental energy rushed out. Immediately, the huge nine-headed snake blocked the lizard creature's attack. Dang dang dang. The lizard creature retreated dozens of steps, and its attack, which was originally aimed at the young man from the demonic path, immediately collapsed. Damn it! The leader of the demonic soldiers cursed in a low voice. Just as he was about to command the lizard creature to continue attacking, the young man from the demonic path had already arrived in front of him. The great demon halberd in the latter's hands shot out, and turned into two black streaks of light that shot towards the leader of the demonic soldiers' vital points. Boom! The leader of the demonic soldiers took a step forward and swung the double-edged axe in his hand. A wild wind whistled, and an explosive energy spread out. Immediately, the great demon halberd in front of him was completely destroyed. Die! The moment the great demon halberd was destroyed, the leader of the demonic soldiers took a step forward and instantly arrived in front of Zhuowen. The double-edged axe was swung from the side, and terrifying demonic energy formed a terrifying storm that enveloped Zhuowen. The leader of the demonic soldiers was a third heaven demon emperor. Even though Zhuowen was from the demonic path, he could not be careless. Therefore, he immediately took out the slaughtering demonic blade. On the surface of the demonic blade, black and red auras alternated and spread out like clouds. There was a strange pungent smell within it. Boom! In an instant, the slaughtering demonic blade and the double-edged axe collided. The sound of metal clashing was like a great bell as it spread out. Invisible energy ripples spread out, causing the surrounding space to show signs of collapsing. Demonic chi and demonic chi mixed together in the void, and a terrifying energy spread out, causing many warriors in the nine-headed snake formation to be secretly shocked. Boom! Boom! The battle between demonic Dao Zhuowen and the demon soldier commander was extremely fierce. The two of them fought from the sky to the ground, and then from the ground to the sky. Demonic power and demon power collided with each other, creating terrifying shockwaves. Many areas of space were crushed by these two forces, completely collapsing and breaking apart. The battle between a third heaven demon emperor and a third heaven demon emperor was almost as powerful as a fifth heaven emperor. Many cultivators were secretly shocked. They finally understood why demon emperors and demon emperors were so famous, and were even known as terrifying existences like fighting machines. Both of them had the strength to fight. Now that the demon soldier commander is pinned down, the might of the lizard creature has been greatly weakened. Let's immediately destroy it in one go. While everyone's attention was attracted by the battle between the demonic Dao cultivator Zhuowen and the demon soldier commander, Master Mu Feng was extremely calm. With a wave of his sleeve, he controlled the core of the nine-headed snake formation and circulated a huge amount of energy. The others also reacted and began to cooperate with Master Mu Feng's actions, injecting their own yuan power into the nine-headed snake formation. Boom! In an instant, the might of the nine-headed snake formation became much more terrifying. Subsequently, the 9 snake heads swept out and bombarded the lizard creature. The originally terrifying lizard creature seemed to have become much more dispirited at this moment. Under the attack of the 9-headed snake formation, it was forced to retreat. Moreover, if one were to observe carefully, the corpses of demon soldiers would frequently fall from the lizard creature. These corpses were the demon soldiers who were unlucky enough to die under the attacks of the 9-headed snake formation, because they couldn't withstand it. Moreover, the number of demon soldiers' corpses was still increasing, and the strength of the lizard creature was gradually decreasing. It was almost suppressed by the 9-headed snake formation. Bastard, get lost! Naturally, when the demon soldier commander saw this scene, his eyes turned incomparably red. With a furious roar, billowing demonic energy gushed out and forced Zhuowen to retreat by dozens of steps. Thereafter, he rushed towards Zhuowen once again with a murderous aura. He knew that if he didn't kill this demonic Dao youth in front of him, it would be impossible for him to return to the lizard creature and command the demon soldiers again. Therefore, this demonic Dao youth in front of him had to die. True demon space destruction. As the demon soldier commander rushed over, he had already swung the double-edged axe in his hand. Suddenly, a terrifying demonic energy soared into the sky and turned into a huge true demon phantom above his body. This true demon phantom stepped out from the void. Demonic energy surged around its body, and its face wasn't light. However, its pair of eyes appeared particularly demonic. The moment the true demon phantom appeared, the double-edged axe in the demon soldier commander's hand suddenly expanded countless times. The true demon phantom held it in its palm, and with a roar, it suddenly smashed down on Zhuowen below. The violent astral wind that swept out from the axe blade was like the most powerful weapon in the world. It could smash anything that was swept into it into pieces. At this moment, the 9-headed snake formation not far away had completely suppressed the lizard creature. Moreover, every time it attacked, many of the demon soldiers in the lizard creature would die. Everyone knew that when most of the demon soldiers died, the lizard creature would collapse by itself. Therefore, the people in the 9-headed snake formation were rather relaxed. Many of them even paid attention to the fierce battle between the demon cultivator and the demon soldier commander on the other side of the void. What a terrifying move! The demon soldier commander is going all out. When the crowd saw the terrifying true demon phantom, their eyes were filled with shock. The power of a third heaven demon emperor's all-out attack made many fourth heaven emperor realm warriors feel fear in their hearts. Facing the true demon phantom, those fourth heaven emperor realm warriors felt guilty because they realized that if they were to face the true demon phantom, their outcome would be very serious. Demon cultivator Zhuowen slowly stood in the void and stared at the terrifying true demon phantom. His gaze was as calm as water. He slowly raised the slaughtering devil blade in his right hand. Then a mysterious aura spread out. Black and red alternating energy burst out and formed a huge word abstinence in the void. The third move of the slaughtering abstinence saber technique, abstinence. There is nothing in the world that cannot be abstinence from, and nothing that cannot be abstinence from. An indifferent voice slowly came out from his mouth. Then, another word appeared beside the word abstinence in the void. This word was the word abstinence. However, the moment these two words appeared, the entire space seemed to have come to a standstill. The true demon silhouette's double-edged axe also came to a complete stop at this moment. It was as if there was a strange sealing force in the air that had completely locked the true demon silhouette in place, making it unable to move at all. Kill! The instant the true demon phantasm froze, demonic Dao's Zhuowen leapt up and raised the demonic slaughtering blade above his head. The demonic runes on the demonic slaughtering blade throbbed like a heart. Soon after, the demonic slaughtering blade grew from 10 feet to several hundred feet in length and smashed down on the head of the true demon phantasm. Boom! 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 From beginning to end, demon cultivator Zhuowen slashed down with his blade. Then, he slowly landed on the ground and walked step by step towards the demon soldier commander, standing behind the true demon phantom. Under the confinement of the abstinence saber, the demon soldier commander was unable to move. He could only stare blankly as demon cultivator Zhuowen approached him. When Zhuowen arrived in front of him, the gigantic true demon phantom behind him actually fell to its knees. A heavy pressure slammed onto the ground, causing waves of tremors. Then, the true demon phantom slowly dissipated. After forcing me to use the abstinence saber, you can die in peace. Demon cultivator Zhuowen's emotionless eyes glanced indifferently at the demon soldier commander, whose eyes were filled with fear. With a wave of his right hand, a huge head soared into the sky. Oh, this is... The instant the demon soldier commander's head was chopped off, Zhuowen keenly discovered that a ball of white light had shot out from the demon soldier commander's body. It seemed that the demon soldier commander was planning to break through the air and escape. This is Demon Yuan? Let's see where you're going. Zhuowen was taken aback. He took a step forward and slammed his right hand down, sucking the escaping white light into his palm. Within the white light, the miniature demon soldier commander withdrew. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Zhuowen, begging for mercy. Cultivators had their own reasons. Naturally, after the origin beast became a martial emperor, it would naturally have a similar existence. Generally, cultivators called it Demon Yuan. Demon Yuan was similar to a cultivator's nascent soul. The only difference was that Demon Yuan was much tougher than a cultivator's nascent soul and would not dissipate easily. After all, this is the Demon Yuan of a third-level demon emperor. I wonder if it will be of some help to that little guy, the Black Soul Ice Butterfly? Zhuowen's heart stirred. At the same time, the Black Soul Ice Butterfly in the Ice Saint Talisman sent a cheerful message to his mind. Obviously, his guess was right. The demon soldier commander's Demon Yuan was of great use to it. Little guy, wait for a moment. I'll give it to you later. After Zhuowen comforted the profound soul ice butterfly with his mind, he stored it in his spirit ring. The Saint Rune of Ice existed in his body. If he wanted to give the demon essence to Zhuowen, he had to give it to his body. Now that there were so many people around, he naturally couldn't expose the fact that Zhuowen of the demonic Dao was his doppelganger. The demon soldier commander's double-edged axe is a good treasure. I'll take it. After keeping the demon Yuan, Zhuowen naturally did not let go of the double-edged axe in the demon soldier commander's hand. The axe was a powerful demon weapon. Its power was equivalent to an emperor weapon. In a sense, it was even more powerful than an ordinary emperor weapon. Zhuowen naturally would not let it go. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.